Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Week 4, Night 1 of the Modern Streamers League. I'm Sean Seacrease along with TheSaintDoom and our special guest this week. Also from Team Ice, Cyrus Corman-Gill. He's been playing Bring to Light Snowshift, and he had a spicy one in Singleton last week. We'll catch up with both of them in just a moment here on Night 1, Week 4 of the Modern Streamers League. This Modern Streamers League is brought to you in part by Card Hoarder and Card Kingdom. Whether you want to play the latest tech in Modern online on Modo, or you want to get together with friends face-to-face or in a meet space tournament, each can help you with your ends. Card Hoarder online and Card Kingdom for the latest in your cardboard needs. Not only helping us advance the Modern meta, but also making sure that the Modern Streamers League has an opportunity to continue its mission of fundraising throughout Season 1. As we heard from Team Fire last week, we know that they're fundraising for A21, an organization seeking to end human trafficking around the globe. And from Team Ice, whose perspective we'll be seeing here in Week 4. They're playing for the Cancer Research Institute, looking to investigate and ultimately bring to an end all forms of cancer worldwide. You can support your favorite, Team Fire or Team Ice, by clicking on their charity links. You can check out their deck lists at Aether Hub. They're up as well, and at ModernStreamersLeague.com. TheSaintDoom is with us this evening. He jumped in on Wednesday as part of Singleton Week. SaintDoom, we're coming into Week 4. This is now the home stretch for the first half of the Modern Streamers League.
Absolutely. And if you had told me 3 weeks ago that we would be all tied up after 3 weeks, the fact that we are all tied up right now is absolutely unbelievable. 15-15, 1-1-1. This is just two teams battling very hard for their particular charity, and both absolutely great charities. And I can't believe that we're absolutely all tied up right now.
One of the sub-stories to that is the fact that there are only 4 undefeateds remaining after 3 weeks in the Modern Streamers League. We'll talk about those players, and we'll see a few of them tonight, including the only undefeated matchup in Week 4 coming up in Round 5 later this evening. I'm Sean Seacrease along with TheSaintDoom, and it is time to bring in tonight's guest analyst. You know him as an absolute master of the Storm archetype in Legacy. He's shown his chops in Vintage, in Modern, and in any other format that Wizards can put together as well. Cyrus Corman-Gill joins us this evening. Cyrus, thanks for joining us this evening. How's the Modern Streamers League been so far for you this season?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun getting to meet a lot of the other people who stream Modern. I'm kind of always been more in touch with other formats, but I really enjoy Modern. It's probably my favorite format right now, and it's been great to see all these cool decks and all these great people playing them. So it's great that it's a really close competition too. You know, it's not so much fun when someone just runs away with one side of it. So even though we're playing for a charity, so I'm happy with either outcome. I obviously want Team Ice to win, but yeah, I'm having a great time so far.
We'll have the perspective of Team Ice, as Cyrus mentioned, all week this week as they are hosting the Modern Streamers League. Coming up this evening, I mentioned the undefeated showdown. We're going to see that in Round 5 tonight. Yamakiller for Team Fire taking on our own TheSaintDoom of Team Ice. That is 2 of the only 4 undefeateds remaining in the Modern Streamers League, and they'll go head-to-head in Round 5. We'll get things started with Caleb Shearer on Storm. He'll be taking on Davius on one of the most exciting decks that we've seen. Creativity meets explosiveness meets absolute greed, both in the mana base and in the desire to cast some of the biggest spells available in Modern. He's on 5-color Niv-Mizzet. That will get us started. But in order to get there, we have to get the forecast of doom as we get set here on Night 1, Week 4 of the Modern Streamers League.
So looking at these 2 decks, I definitely think Storm is ahead. So the thing about Storm is I think usually when this deck is really powerful is when just kind of goldfishing a turn 3 win as well as having Remand is really powerful. And both of those things are extremely good against 5-color Niv-Mizzet. So the Niv-Mizzet deck does have interaction. You know, it has Abrupt Decay, it has some Thought Erasures, but a lot of its spells are kind of clunky and the mana can be a little slow and awkward to get going. And Storm, you know, undeterred, we almost always goldfish a turn 3, turn 4 win. And you have Remand, so you're able to remand some of the more expensive spells like Niv-Mizzet, Bring to Light, things like that. And that can just be, Time Walk is just so especially powerful. And also, the Niv-Mizzet deck just doesn't have that many great sideboard cards against this deck, whereas the Storm deck's pretty streamlined. That being said, the Niv-Mizzet deck has powerful things going on, and Storm can struggle sometimes with consistency. So I do think that Storm is ahead here, but I mean, also this Bring to Light Niv-Mizzet deck is kind of the X factor. We haven't really seen too much of it before this league, and maybe I'm underestimating its ability to win this matchup. So it should be interesting to see. It's always fun seeing this deck that's like a million one-ofs. And obviously I'm biased. I like watching Storm, and especially watching Caleb play Storm. So it should be a close match.
Caleb Shearer on Storm, DaviusMinimus on the 5-color Niv-Mizzet deck. Both Team Ice and Team Fire deadlocked at 15 wins apiece after the first 3 weeks of the Modern Streamers League. 10 weeks to this first season. Sort of the first half, weeks 1 through 5, and then the second half of the season will be weeks 6 through 10. We'll see who has the lead coming out of this evening. 5 matches, so somebody's going to have the leg up. Caleb Shearer on Storm for Team Fire, and we're watching DaviusMinimus on the 5-color Niv-Mizzet deck. Pillar of the Perins, Caleb, is one of the absolutely underrated mana sources in Modern if you're going to warp your deck to gold-colored cards to get the most out of it. This is just 4 copies of almost a free give me any color of mana source that really the deck couldn't function without enough of these copies.
Yeah, I forgot that card even existed, but I really like this hand from Davius. It has some of the most important cards in the matchup, which are, Birds of Paradise and then Pillar, so you're able to cast your spells, or just in general in the deck. But Teferi can be so incredibly potent against Storm because they don't have a great way to deal with it. They can attack it with their creatures, but then, whatever, and then it turns off their remands and things like that. And also allows your counter spells to be more powerful. So I think we're going to see a Teferi here, and I imagine it's going to get plus because just losing it to like a scrape shot or a grape shot here would be kind of annoying.
How afraid is Storm of a Teferi on the board? Teferi just says you can only play cards when you could play a sorcery. That includes in the player's main phase. How important is that sort of static line of text?
Well, yeah, the only thing that really turns off is going to be it turns off a lot of small things, especially from a blue deck, because the game plan of Storm is to, play a creature. Oh, wow. And then we have a turn 3 of Johnny tapping this down. But to play a creature and then chain that into rituals into gifts ungiven. And it's hard to do that through a piece of interaction if you can't operate at instant speed, because you can't instant speed gifts, you can't instant speed rituals, you can't leave a bear on the board because Teferi can bounce it. Oh, and Caleb missed his second land drop, and he draws Unmoored Ego for turn, which can name... Grape Shot won't win game 1. There isn't Empty the Warrens in the deck, but you can name Gifts Ungiven, and that will almost certainly win the game. It's hard to come back from that. So we'll see what we will see what Davius names here, though. I would name Gifts Ungiven.
Johnny just absolutely locking down the mana sources, and that was an important land drop miss from Caleb, as Davius is going to take game 1 because WotC has taken the 1-mana rituals really out of Modern, so he needs those 2 lands in order to get going. So even with a land drop there, he's still a couple turns away probably from getting going.
Yeah, it wasn't really going to be close, and I think the thing is that Caleb just, if you name Grape Shot or you name Gifts Ungiven there, it's so unlikely he's going to be able to win that game at any point because any creature he plays will be removed. He can't operate it instant speed, and also the Izzet Charm can kill a Goblin Electromancer as well as tax a spell, so it's going to be basically impossible to get anything going there. So it just kind of happened that Davius drew a lot of the good cards in the matchup, which is a smart thing to do when you win games of Magic, is to draw the right spells at the right time. So
yeah, he had it all 3 ways because Johnny's down tick is Lightning Helix, so there wasn't going to be anything that could stay on the board.
Yeah, it just is not going to work out. So looking at sideboarding here, it looks like he's taking out some of the clunkier spells. Like he's just kind of planning to take more of a control route with the Planeswalkers and various forms of interaction and win that way. You have a pretty potent card in the form of Kambal. And if you look at Caleb's sideboard, he has good ways to answer things, but he has an Echoing Truth. He has probably bringing a Spell Pierce, which can be pretty strong against the card Bring to Light. I imagine the Negate will come in, and then I don't love Empty the Warrens in this matchup, probably, because the thing about Bring to Light is it gives you so many ways to find cards for Empty the Warrens. Although looking at this deck, I'm not seeing too many sweepers. Feels like there should be a supreme verdict in here that I'm missing, but I don't see one. So maybe there's not a sweeper.
Izzet Staticaster for 1/1s is going to be a sweeper because they'll all have
out of the sideboard. And there's a supreme verdict. I was just looking in the main deck, but yeah, out of the sideboard, he's bringing in as a Staticaster, and the supreme verdict looks like it's staying in the sideboard. But that's a card I like too. Being able to remove bears through a remand is pretty powerful, although it is a lot of mana.
So Davius wins game 1. Going to game 2 now between DaviusMinimus and Caleb Shearer. Caleb on Storm. We've got a Storm Master and Cyrus corman-gill with us this evening here on the Modern Streamers League. So, Cyrus, which format is Storm most dangerous in right now? You play Legacy, you play Vintage, you also play Modern, and while you're not playing Storm in the Modern Streamers League, at least in the first half of the season, which of those formats do you think Storm is most dangerous in right now?
I think certainly in Legacy. I don't really think it's a competitive deck in Modern or Vintage right now, but I think Caleb can basically win with it in any situation. So, but certainly it's a tier 1 strategy in Legacy right now, and I mean, it takes a lot for me not to register a Storm strategy in Magic, and I'm not playing it in either Modern or Vintage right now, so that does say a lot. But the thing about Storm is it is just a turn 3 win deck, so it's pretty powerful. Looking at this hand from Davius, I don't like it as much as the other hand because it doesn't have as good of mana and it doesn't have acceleration, but you get to go Abrupt Decay. Like, you can, I would probably shock the Godless Shrine. No, you don't need to shock Godless Shrine. You can just play Godless Shrine tapped here and then turn to Decay the bear that will likely be played out, and then you get to play Ashiok, and that can be potent if Caleb is not on the Empty the Warrens plan, which I don't know how good that is in this matchup. Okay, so no bear.
Is it an overreach to consider cards like Bloodbraid Elf if you're Davius? Basically saying that without a bird on turn 1 to play Bloodbraid Elf on 3, is the game going to be too far gone by the time you would tap out for it on turn 4?
Well, it's interesting because the thing about Storm is it's more about the threat of interaction than it is about the actual interaction sometimes. And when you go shields down, that lets someone like Caleb know that he can just win the game series. So I expect this to be countered in some fashion. Or for Caleb to go Ritual Gifts here. Remand, yeah. So the thing is that someone like Caleb is going to play around the things he can play around. He knows that there's counter spells, he knows there's removal spells. But when you do something like cast a Bloodbraid Elf, that just puts shields down for a turn. And yeah, Bloodbraid's a good card. But in games in this matchup that it's winning you were probably already going to win anyways, is my assessment. So I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb has a win here on 6 cards. He could have a creature into the win. It's pretty easy on 4 mana, but he has to have the right pieces. He hasn't cast any cantrips yet, but that remand is a redraw, and he's seen a lot of cards this game.
Yeah, 2 important differences. His mana has come for him in this game, and he is under no pressure from the board of Davius, so he's free to do what he wants here, and we're going to start with cycling Manamorphose.
Yeah, I think that's something people don't do enough, is cycle Manamorphose. It's people want to save it for their thing, but so it looks like this might just be an Empty the Warrens.
And Davius is on full F6 here. He is just a passenger while Caleb Shearer tries to win this game. And
okay.
Caleb, go the Goblin route that you mentioned.
So it's kind of interesting what you want to do this turn. I think that casting Bloodbraid Elf is kind of interesting because there's a lot of powerful spells it could hit that would clean up these tokens, but also just having a body on board is pretty nice. You do have to shock to do that, but then you get to shock, you get to Lightning Helix plus Decay next turn. Do you have the mana to do that? Not quite. So there's an Izzet Charm which can be used to kill a creature, and then you're only taking 6 a turn, and Lightning Helix is going to pretty significantly change the math here. Caleb's down to 3 cards in hand, which makes you wonder if he has something else going on and can rebuild or have a grape shot. But I like this play of playing a Bloodbraid, I think.
Well, and Davey is also just 1 mana source away from Niv-Mizzet, becomes an extra blocker, and you get to refill that hand most likely. That's the draw to play this deck.
Yeah, that card is kind of crazy. I don't know exactly all the words on it. Okay, yeah, so grape shot here gets to take out the Bloodbraid Elf, and then there's Brawl on the board too. So this is where something like Supreme Verdict would be nice, but obviously it's not castable at this point in the game. But okay, that doesn't do much for you, but
much different situation to draw the ego here in this round.
So here you should have cast Lightning Helix first in case Caleb has Spell Pierce, but it shouldn't make a huge difference. But that'd be a total disaster because you get your Lightning Helix countered and Brawl gets Salute. He has the Negate, which is is effectively the same, but he has 1 copy of Negate, 1 copy of Spell Pierce, so it's just a minor thing. But it looks like that Davis is going to be too far behind this game. But things get a lot better when you're on the play against Storm because you get to just cast your spells a little easier under Remand and Brawl and stuff. So,
and you see Davius's wry grin in the camera now as he knows that he is just holding on for dear life here, and everything depends on what Caleb goes for.
Yeah, this is an interesting guessing given. It really depends what the last card Caleb's hand is. But, people kind of talk about how they think Storm's kind of an easy binary deck. You kind of just go, ritual gifts. But, no Merfolk this week, Monster. How's it going, dude? And I'm saying Duke's into that person. But Gifts and Givens is a pretty interesting Magic card. And it obviously becomes easier with things like Past in Flames. Okay, so... the correct way to split this here is that you want to give them the Manamorphose and the Past in Flames because otherwise they have a guaranteed win. No, they wouldn't have a win, but he would have a win with another mana source. But he had the Manamorphose in hand. No, he already had that.
Manamorphose is going to start adding mana to the mana pool rather than being mana neutral because of the Brawl.
Yeah.
Through depths. So is this conclusive?
Let's see. Yeah, it looks like lethal. Yeah, it's lethal. So I'm wondering what Caleb's last card in hand. I imagine Caleb's last card in hand was Grape Shot, and then so no matter what pile that Davius gives him, he's able to win from that situation. So I actually like Supreme Verdict in this matchup. I also like things like some of these cards better than things like Bloodbraid and Ajani. I think those cards are just too clunky, but it'd be interesting to see if Davius readjusts for the side post board games. I think all of the 2 mana and 1 mana spells are obviously powerful. But the thing about your 4 mana spells is, yeah, it's hard to say, actually. I definitely like Supreme Verdict in this matchup, and I would be tempted to bring in, like, Kolaghan's Command I think can be fine just as a shock and discard on end step. Like, you just really want to trade 1-for-1 on resources with Storm in my experience, because you have so many ways to recoup card advantage that Storm doesn't have except in the form of Past in Flames. And you have the Spell Bomb as a 1-up to turn off Past in Flames, but...
Yeah, and that makes me consider Night of Autumn. Gaining 4 life is much different in Modern, where the copies of Grapeshot are only doing 1, as opposed to Tendrils in Legacy doing 2. So gaining 4 and having a blocker available, depending on how the board sets up for Goblins, is that going to be enough to consider a card like Night of Autumn?
Yeah, it's really interesting because it depends on the type of game you're going to want to play. So what's interesting about the Modern Storm deck is you can essentially deal over 100 damage pretty easily with Modern Storm once you start going off if you have Gifts and Given your opponent's not interacting with you significantly. But in the games that are just like mini Grape Shots empty the Warrens, then that would be pretty close. So it would have been like powerful that game, perhaps. But how do you feel about this hand from Davius?
Well, right now we're not seeing what helped him really in game 1, I should say, which was the early mana acceleration. And is Bring to Light going to be something he wants to wait for on turn 4?
Yeah, I almost wonder if this deck should be playing things like the 1 mana enchantments that can make you tap it, like can enchant a forest and tap for different colors of mana, or Noble Hierarchs or something, even though they don't cast all your spells. Because it does seem like that mana acceleration is so important. But I do think that Scry 1 top 1 bottom, he's letting us know from Caleb. That's pretty funny. I do like this hand a lot from Davius, though. I think it has the 2 relevant things you have, which are Thought Erasure to take the payoff spell and then Abrupt Decay for a creature. It can be pretty hard for this deck to win if they don't have a creature. But that's assuming you're able to establish a relevant clock, which Davius, his deck is not quite capable of doing always. But I would certainly take the Gifts Ungiven here. When casting discard spells against Storm, I usually like to take the cards that matter because there's a finite number of cards that matter in combo decks. And so if you're fighting over things like cantrips and counter magic, those are cards that could have technically be blanks. You already know what Gifts Ungiven does, and it wins the game. But he's going to decide to take the Spell Pierce. It will let him cast Bring to Light later, which is interesting. But
and that hand for Caleb really wasn't all that threatening.
That's kind of the beauty of a more resource-based engine deck like Storm, is that you can keep hands that are just a bunch of cantrips because your cards are so interchangeable for the most part, except for Gifts Ungiven, basically, especially game 1, and that you can just kind of keep most hands, which is what Caleb did there. Ooh, that was a good draw, Cabal. Caleb doesn't currently have an answer to it. It's interesting that Caleb didn't play a Serum Visions this turn, though, right? Because did he have a Serum Visions in hand? So that would make me think that he likely has Remand in hand, and that's I think that Davius picked up on that as well.
Yeah, he had the op for certain. I believe the Spell Pierce and then the Visions that went along with the Gifts Ungiven were his 4 action cards.
So I imagine how this game is going to play out is that Caleb's going to be holding up Remand and then casting Gifts as soon as he gets to 4 mana. So it's kind of an awkward place to be in with Cabal.
Well, and right now, Davius doesn't have the mana to put Cabal on the board either. So that's a bit awkward.
Davius continues to let us know how Caleb is scrying, which is helpful. That's pretty funny.
Oh, the advantages of being the host.
Oh, he can't cast Cabal. Okay, that's not something I really considered. Wow, the mana in this deck is terrible.
It is terrifying what you're willing to put yourself through to play a 5-color deck like this. And really, in my mind, to do this, you have to pick a sort of a spine. I like to call it 2 colors that the deck is mostly reliant on. And then the other colors come as you need them or as you have the opportunity to get them. And Davius, watching him play this now for the 3rd week in the Modern Streamers League, I really haven't picked up on that. You can say green, sure, because that is a key color, but sort of what's his second color? I think that's been interesting to try and deduce, and I haven't really determined after green what the next color is he's looking for. And right now, though, it seems that he's got the world. Is he going to go for the deck's namesake right now? I think he's going to.
I think you should probably attack first in case there's something like a... Oh, what is this going to be for Unmoored Ego?
He's going to go Bring to Light. I thought we might see the dragon.
Yeah, I don't think that's really what this game is, but I think you want to play that. I think when you have other relevant spells to play, you want to play that. So Davius is pulling up Caleb's deck list to seeing what he thinks is the best card. So I think here I think he wants to get Unmoored Ego here.
Of course, all of the decks are public information and have been since week 1 here in the Modern Streamers League. So that has to be an enormous advantage in these situations.
Yeah, certainly. Interesting. So Caleb has the remand, but he decided not to remand the Cabal. Maybe deciding he needs to save it for Bring to Light and find an answer to Cabal. Because you can still combo off Cabal for a few spells without really going for it. So, like, for instance, Caleb could have a win here where he just has to take a lot of damage from the Cabal, but then win deterministically with Grape Shot after that, which might be what's happening here.
The Electromancer. Just another cost reducer for the Storm deck to rely on.
Yeah, so this kind of lets you jump through hoops to make all your spells cost an appropriate amount of mana for Modern, because Pyretic Ritual is just not a very powerful card. But 1 red, add 3, so net 2 is a very powerful card. So depending on what's Caleb's hand, he does not have a guaranteed kill here. To have a guaranteed win with Gets Ungiven, you need to have 3 mana floating. But if he has another Ritual in hand, and I think he has a land drop available too, that could change the equation. Manamorphose makes 1 mana, so... You'll see experienced Storm players do this, is they don't exactly let their opponent know how they're supposed to split things up.
Is this the most fun of playing Storm, watching your opponent split cards off Gifts Ungiven, or is it just killing?
When this deck first broke out, the Gifts Ungiven deck, because Storm used to just be a different type of like a Pyromancer Ascension deck, it was really funny watching people go through the math of Gifts Ungiven and be like, oh, do I give this pile, or this pile, or this pile? And then you're just sitting there like, it doesn't matter what you do, you're just dead. And that part is a little fun. You've won the game, but your opponent doesn't know it yet, and you get to cast like 18 more spells that turn. And people act like they're kind of getting you, like, oh, I'm going to make you go through it. And you're like, oh, be my guest. Like, so Gifts Ungiven is a really fun Magic card to play.
Yeah, I've played against some very talented Storm players, and I know one well enough to accuse him of grandstanding and have him understand that I'm being his friend while accusing him of that. But I feel like that's part of the reason that Storm players who are good at the deck are so good at the deck, because they enjoy that moment where the shields are down and they get to display that mastery of the deck. And Caleb certainly is just as viable, if you give him the opportunity, as anybody else who's ever picked up a Storm deck.
Yeah, I think Caleb, is certainly the best Modern Storm player by a pretty wide margin. He's really good at this deck. But so this is an interesting pile here. So he's got Lightning Bolt, Manamorphose, Grape Shot, and Passive Flame. So I think that what I would do here is bin the Lightning Bolt and the Grape Shot. Oh, man, this is hard. So you really have to be wondering what Caleb's other 4 cards in hand are. Like if it's a ritual or 2 rituals or a ritual and a land. Oh, man, this is really tough. How would you split this here? You've played against Storm probably.
I have never registered Storm for an official DCI event, and I am the person in our gauntlet that when it's my turn to play the Storm deck against people cringe. So I have only split this from the opponent's point of view, and I'm not exactly sure how I would split this up, considering that there's a cost reducer and that Caleb's already got red mana in his mana pool so that he can seem to keep going here. Do you want to give up the combo by giving him the Lightning Bolt? I mean, I think there's a lot of nuance based on the hand.
Well, no, I think it's pretty interesting if you've been Bolt Grape Shot, is what Chat is saying, because the thing is you don't know Caleb's bottleneck here, which is what's interesting about Storm, and so what Davius is trying to figure out here is what the bottleneck is. So if the bottleneck is, the Cabal, then you can bin the Bolt and the Grape Shot, and then maybe Caleb doesn't have a mana. But if Caleb has Ritual Morphos Piff, that would deal 1, 2, 3, 6, go down to 5, and then he could just Bolt and continue to go off from there, right? Because that's 3, 4, 6, 8. So Caleb would live exactly at 3 life, I think. So I don't know, but the thing is you could think, well, maybe Caleb is trying to set up for a win next turn, and what I can do is bin the Grape Shot and the Bolt, and then the Cabal's gonna be more protected, and I'm gonna be able to get into damage. I can cast Bring to Light for Unmoored Ego, name Past in Flames, and then I'm in an amazing situation because Caleb doesn't have access to his graveyard. So I think this is actually a really interesting situation. I think that what I would do is probably, so if you bin the Manamorphose and the Piff, you force Caleb to do more rituals, which would maybe not work.
But
yeah, so
you've already had your opponent show you Thought Erasure. How comfortable are you waiting until next turn with those cards in your hand?
Yeah, so it looks like it wouldn't have mattered because Caleb had 2 rituals, but it was one of those situations where you're darned if you don't, darned if you do. But I do think it was an interesting situation. I think that I would have binned the Past in Flames and the Morphos there and hoped to Bring to Light for Unmoored Ego the next turn.
Davius just in the passenger seat again, and this is a helpless feeling when Storm is accruing cards, mana advantage, now going off with the Past in Flames, mana in the pool, and this has to be close to deterministic at this point. The Combal, going down, and maybe not. I forgot Combal gains you the life along the way. So this may not be deterministic at this point. We'll see how Caleb can string.
No, it's definitely going to be deterministic.
Okay.
Caleb should be able. I mean, at least I imagine. Let's see. He's got his great. I guess he's a little choked on blue mana, but he should be able to do well over 100 damage here if he would like to do so. Once the Storm deck gets going, it's just so powerful. It really depends on if. No, even you could, because so one thing is if you bin the Past in Flames, oftentimes Storm boards out 1 copy of Past in Flames because of Graveyard Hate, which you can imagine he probably wouldn't do against this deck because their Graveyard Hate is not things like Leyline, it's Kaya's Guile and Nile Spellbomb. But the thing is the Storm deck can struggle to deal enough damage if you bin their Past in Flames and make them use it, because then they don't have enough flashback spells in their graveyard. So
they're just running right up against the upper limit of the math available. And there it is. Caleb takes it as Davius just runs out of interaction and comes up short in the matchup against Storm. So game 1 goes to Davius, but games 2 and 3 go to Caleb. And we see that Team Fire pulls in front as we came into this week, tied 15-15, now up 16-15 after round 1, night 1 of week 4 here of the Modern Streamers League. Cyrus, was that just what Storm had to do in each situation came together, or was there really a line of play that you as an accomplished Storm player were surprised that Caleb took?
No, I think Caleb basically made the correct decision on every turn, as he usually does. I think that matchup is just really good for Storm. It's like a combination of Storm's best matchups, which are big mana decks, slow, clunky, mid-range type of decks, the deck is really designed to prey on those decks that are trying to win on the upper end of the mana curve of Modern, because Remand and winning on turn 3 is so powerful. And the thing about Storm is it's also a deck that does get better the longer the game goes. So when you're a big mana control deck, you're just not able to really threaten the deck consistently. You really need a different. You need more removal, more efficient spells, 1 mana spells. So that's kind of just. I think what Storm does, and Storm does lose to itself sometimes. I mean, I was able to beat Caleb with my Bring to Light deck because Caleb just kind of fizzled. It happens very rarely, but...
You also bounced his creatures with Teferi. That helped you quite a bit in that matchup, it looked like. Just buying you, kind of remanding him as well, a little bit there.
Yeah, and Bring to Light has a combo kill. The Bring to Light deck I play has a combo kill rather than just being a control deck. So, game 1, I think basically everything did go right for the 5-color Niv-Mizzet deck, but they really need to draw the right spells at the right time, which is hard for a deck that can be a little clunky in the early game, but is really trying to prey on decks in the turn 5+ range, where basically any spell you draw will just win the game against decks like Jund or something.
That was round 1 of 5 tonight on the Modern Streamers League. We're going to see all 5 colors again in round 2, but we're going to divvy them up this time. It's going to be blue and red teaming up to take down white, green, and black. At least that's what they hope, as Cat Light is going to take on KoDiamonds. That's next. This is the Modern Streamers League.
Graphics. We're gonna go back to this. Right there. So what I was actually thinking was we're going to go from here, we're going to go back here, and then we're going to go from here to forecast to the forecast of the match. Okay. I got the forecast. And then I'd love to have Cyrus definitely do his own match forecast. Ready?
We're going to see both of my co-hosts play this evening due to a late tag in the tag team format that is team play. We're going to see TheSaintDoom play on a Monday night. That's going to be a first. He's been pretty good on Wednesdays. Will that luck/good play carry through to Mondays? We'll find out coming up in round 5. And Cyrus corman-gill, he has his showdown coming up against Edo in round 3. But first, it's round 2, our first look at one of our undefeated players after 3 weeks in the Modern Streamers League. Cat Light, who was so good a couple of weeks ago at the Mythic Championship where she went 10-5. She is going to be back to her blue-red Phoenix list here in week 4. Cat Light taking on KoDiamonds. He was an analyst with me last week. We had a lot of fun, but will his Abzan deck be able to stand up to the speed and raw power of Cat Light's blue-red Phoenix deck? We'll get it now. It's the forecast of doom with TheSaintDoom ahead of round 2 here on the Modern Streamers League.
This is a very interesting match to me. This is classic mid-range versus mid-range. If you in fact want to call Izzet Phoenix a mid-range deck, which I absolutely can see calling it that. Now, the big thing that I see here is whether or not KoDiamonds can control Thing in the Ice and can control any burst really fast turns, like a really fast Phoenix draw. If KoDiamonds has Disruption, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push to definitely hit that Thing in the Ice, and maybe even a Scavenging Ooze to knock back and slow down Cat's powerful graveyard strategy with recurring a bunch of Phoenixes at once, I think this would favor Abzan mid-range. Now, looking even forward, even more than that, Kevin also has Lingering Souls, which can block a flipped Thing in the Ice for days upon days upon days. Kat, on her end, she has to kind of win quick because I don't think she's going to win a long game because Kevin does have access to ways to even combat Aria of Flame. Now, out of the board, I really think the big thing here is that Kat needs ways to kill the big creatures to slow Kevin down so she maybe can win that Aria game, or maybe just kind of win like a bolt, snap, bolt strategy, even though she doesn't have Snapcaster, but it's kind of a burn out win condition. Now, ways to kill Tarmogoyf, there are very, very few, but she's going to need something here. That is the forecast of Doom. I think this matchup does favor the bigger mid-range deck, does favor Abzan mid-range. Let's see how it all plays out.
I really like this opening hand from KoDiamonds here. It has the kind of thing you want, which is just going to be discard spell and a Dark Confidant, I imagine. Although Dark Confidant is not as good in this matchup. You can maybe take the removal spell that would hit it. And also, I think having Assassin's Trophy for Thing in the Ice is pretty important. So I like this hand. I mean, I think that you're encouraged to keep a lot of hands with mid-range decks because, you know, you're mostly just trying to trade 1-for-1. And when you're trading 1-for-1, it's important to have a high quantity of cards in your hand.
Well, that plus he has his curve set out if he wants to. He's got the turn one Thoughtseize does KoDiamonds, and then he's got the option based on how the board develops to either hold up the Assassins or to go for Dark Confidant and start on the card advantage wagon. So I think you're right, Cyrus. He's really incentivized to keep this hand, especially on the play, and we're going to see KoDiamonds opt for the Inquisition turn one in the dark instead.
Yeah, I wonder if Thoughtseize is better because you don't need to guarantee take it. Or because you don't need to take the 2 life, and oftentimes against this deck it's going to be the same thing, because the main things you could Thoughtseize that you couldn't Inquisition would be Arclight Phoenix, and you certainly don't want to Thoughtseize Arclight Phoenix. So this is an interesting take here. I think I agree with taking Manamorphose.
We mentioned that this is a known quantities league in the Modern Streamers League. Advantage there, I think, because you know you can go with Inquisition and get what you want, or is that just the default play in Modern right now to lean on Inquisition over Thoughtseize?
I'm not sure on that one. I don't know, but I think that I would tend to lead on Inquisition because Thoughtseize can take things later down the line, which are more important. So if you wanted to go turn 1 Inquisition, turn 2 Dark Confidant, and then you wanted to turn 3 Thoughtseize a random opponent, at that point you could then take Bloodbraid Elf, you could take Jace, you could take Karn at the point in the game which they would then come online, where Inquisition is going to take the early game plays that you care about. So I in my mind, I would default to leading on Inquisition.
KoDiamonds trying to draw Team Ice back to level after the round 1 win by Caleb Shearer on Storm has Team Fire up 16-15 as we head into round 2 of night 1 of week 4 of the Modern Streamers League. Team Fire playing for their charity, A21. A21 looks to end human trafficking worldwide. You can donate to that outstanding cause just below. And for Team Ice, they're playing for the Cancer Research Institute, looking to research and end all forms of cancer all around the globe. You can donate to that outstanding cause just below us as well. Deck lists, as well as mini match breakdowns provided by Flying Delver. It's all on our page just below the broadcast here on Twitch. Sean Secrease along with Cyrus Corman-Gill, and we've had drop-ins from our league host and progenitor, TheSaintDoom, who we'll see in round 5 tonight. Now this mid-range game is starting to develop for KoDiamonds, Cyrus. He's gotten to turn 3. He's going to put down the Shambling Vent and the Bob, and now he's going to start threatening card advantage and with possible life-linking attacks if he chooses to do so. This is, in the Phoenix deck, in the hands of Cat Light, ultimately a tempo deck, as they want to put together an explosive turn and then maybe just chip you out with incidental damage.
Yeah, this is interesting. Cat drew another Manamorphose, which, oh wow, and Finale Promises here is huge.
Best card in their deck.
Yeah, so she's going to be able to remove the second Dark Confidant as well as opt. And I think what she's probably looking for here is a Faithless Looting to get that Arclight Phoenix to the graveyard, but also she could just start just casting Faithless Lootings. And it's interesting on if KoDiamonds wants to cast the Liliana here. I think I would be kind of inclined not to, because if you plus Liliana, they get to just discard the Arclight Phoenix and you're digging a card out of your hand. But so I think this is actually a pretty tough decision, because what else are you going to do? Like, Thoughtseize and just pass the turn, you're not using your mana great.
Right. If he didn't want to go Lily at first, now he can't be excited to have the double.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the thing is that I think I probably would have played Liliana plus and discarded Liliana to Liliana, even though that's pretty likely that your opponent's going to get an Arclight Phoenix back next turn. Oh, wow. Well, you have to take the Thing in the Ice here, so that makes sense. But that's a pretty strong hand, and it's pretty good against Liliana, the Veil. So, man. So this is interesting. You can actually just take the Surgical, and that's a spell for Arclight and Thing in the Ice, and then you could Liliana minus, and then that would get value out of your Lily. So I think that I'm actually inclined to do that, but he decides otherwise. I think that's tough.
The Ice. So that'll leave Cat with double Arclight Phoenix and Surgical Extraction. She can play the Arclight, obviously, for Phyrexian mana cost, but she's in search of that fourth land to just hard cast Phoenixes. Now, would she rather see something like Faithless Looting? Absolutely. But it does give you that backdoor look on 4 mana.
Yeah, Hexdrinker's a good draw here because it's a threat. It's something, and it's going to have protection from instants on its 3rd level, right? So Cat has to kind of have the Lightning Bolt here or not at all. She taps it. Oh, she drew the Lightning Bolt for turn, so that was her draw. So I think we might see Cat crack the Firelight Islet here to try and find action, but maybe not. Maybe she's just on the plan to cast Arclight Phoenix for 4 mana, which is also a pretty respectable plan because you're more likely to draw a 4th land than you are to draw exactly Faithless Looting.
KoDiamonds, he's had a lot of feel-bad moments here in Game 1 so far. He's had both Bobs eliminated. He's had the Hexdrinker eliminated after he sunk the mana into it. He hasn't really had good spots to get off his Inquisitions and Thought Seizes. This has to be a tough spot to be in, but sometimes you sign up for a mid-range deck, and this is the kind of magic that you end up with in Modern.
Yeah, I think this is actually kind of an interesting decision point. KoDiamonds is electing still not to use the Lilianas. Oh, is that another Lightning Bolt?
KoDiamond non-plus, you can see.
I actually think using the Lilianas is fine because it's more likely that Cat is going to draw a 4th land, and then she's going to draw 3 spells to cast in 1 turn, especially once you get Liliana going. And another Liliana. Well, you can Liliana Edict here, which is fine. But I think I would have been on the plan of I mean, I don't play a lot of black-green, but I think I would have been on the plan of plussing just because it's so unlikely that she's going to assemble 3 spells in 1 turn without Finale of Promise.
And knowing that her hand is double Arclight Phoenix already, that she doesn't have a lot of fuel for that turn.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she gets to, discard the Arclight Phoenix to Liliana, and that's the downside. But your hand's not really beating just casting 4-mana Arclight Phoenixes. So, of course, just like every other turn, Cat has drawn kind of like the correct card at the correct time. But that's kind of what these Xerox decks do, is they either have cantrips or they draw good cards. They can't, it has to be one of them. So I think that we're going to see KoDiamonds discard Liliana here and then probably play Liliana in minus. And Cat's going to discard Arclight Phoenix, obviously.
I thought maybe it would be the Assassin's Trophy because it's essentially a dead card because you put Cat on the 4th land, which is going to be an unending stream of Arclight Phoenixes. But he's elected to fight this one out with the 3rd Lily and try to get...
Yeah, I guess it's almost impossible to have Thing in the Ice flip this turn. So this is actually, I like this line.
Sleight of hand is where Cat will lead. Cat Light, one of our undefeateds here in Week 4. She's 3-0 through the first 3 weeks of the Modern Streamers League.
We have a lot of very powerful wizards in this league, and Cat Light is certainly one of them. I was
going to say, if I was going to say somebody was going to be 3-0 after 3 weeks, your name might have been on that list. Why isn't it?
Oh, I played a deck that I had literally never played before the Super League. And I played against some powerful wizards as well.
You did. You've already faced down Caleb.
Yeah,
and you've
certainly
had big showdowns.
I think that probably basically everyone in this league is better at Modern than me. If it was a Legacy League or Vintage League, maybe I'd do a little bit better. But okay, so here we have Liliana. It's interesting what you do here. So Cat has 3 cards in hand, and she cracked the Fiery Islet. So you can Edict and then Liliana plus, discarding the land, which is a pretty good play here.
Yeah, it's this blue-red deck. If it ends up on sort of 0 cards, it really is reliant then on Faithless Looting Flashback to try and find something to get going for that combo turn. But
yeah, or drawing Finale of Promise, but Cat already used the copy of Finale of Promise, and there's only one more on the deck. So I wonder if there's a universe where you ever Surgical Extraction Liliana the Veil there, because it kind of telegraphs Liliana that you would use the Edict mode, maybe, but not really, I guess. But it's just a thought process I had if you have from the side of perfect info. So yeah, so Liliana, I imagine this will be plus, even though another Arclight Phoenix will be discarded, And then the problem that you're running into there is Cat could just have 3 spells in hand, and then suddenly you're taking 6 and you're dead in, a few swings. But then you can Assassin's Trophy one, Edict the other one, and you're doing pretty well. So I actually really like where KoDiamonds is at this point in the game.
Yeah, that would almost force the Abzan deck to become the odd tempo deck, which if you would look at these two decks, you would think, well, it would be the blue-red deck that would have the backup plan, so to speak, of being sort of a tempo shell, not the Abzan deck. But that's where KoDiamonds finds himself right now. And we mentioned earlier that you might not want to Assassin's Trophy and give your opponent that 4th land when they're on Phoenix, but if it comes down to tempo and this Tarmogoyf could make short work of Cat, then that's just the game you have to play.
Yeah, I think it's important when assessing a matchup, not just in the macro sense between the two decks, but also game to game, turn to turn of who has the inevitability. Cyrus is shrinking. I'm shrinking. I am shrinking. Up top. There we go. But now I'm really big. Hello, friends. So I think it's important to ask who has the inevitability. And here, it's kind of close because Cat has 2 Arclight Phoenixes in their graveyard. Mm-hmm. But stringing together 3 spells through Liliana on 3 mana is pretty difficult. You've already used 2 Metamorphose, and you've used one of your 2 copies of Finalia Promise. So it's like, how often are you going to be able to string together 3 spells multiple times? Probably only going to be able to do it once, maybe twice this game. And so it's kind of interesting and kind of who's the beatdown. But I do think KoDiamonds is in the interest of ending this game as quickly as possible, just because that's what you want to do. She does have good card advantage engines, well, mostly Finale. But even like casting and Arclight Phoenix could be interesting. But yeah, I think that KoDiamonds is pretty significantly ahead here, unless Cat has something really good here. Because this Tarmogoyf is going to be lethal in not 2 hits, but 3 hits. But if Cat wants to cast that Surgical Extraction in order to get back their Arclight Phoenixes, that suddenly changes the clock, where you could then go minus Liliana, depending on if it gets attacked or not, which you imagine it would be attacked. But minus Liliana, Assassin's Trophy, the other one is Smash for 5. So
yeah, that final finale of Promise would certainly be what I think Cat's looking for off the top here. If she could have any one card, that would give her the opportunity to start.
That card is so good. It just gets back Phoenixes on its own and casts 2 spells. That was like a card designed. You feel like someone designed that to go with Arclight Phoenix in Standard. What a cool card. That's the kind of card that I like to see in Modern. It's 3 to 4 mana, does something cool, is not too powerful. I really like that card. I think it's well designed.
I like how you said not too powerful. I think that's interesting where Modern is right now, that is being considered as not too powerful, because I think it's a fantastically powerful spell.
Yeah, but it's an appropriate power level for Modern, where that's a card that is good in Standard, it's good in Modern, but it's not warping the format. And kind of what you want Modern to be it's interesting what you want Modern to be now with Modern Horizons and everything. Oh, my face changed again. Hey everyone, I'm back. Hello friends.
KoDiamonds getting up out of his chair as well and walking around. He's showing off the art in his room while Cat thinks over her line.
I think she has a tough line here because I think she's considering casting that Surgical Extraction.
Yes.
And that's a pretty big factor in the sense that it puts her to 9 life rather than 12 or 11. And she might have 3 spells, but the thing is that she gets a Surgical and see if there's a removal spell in hand. But it'd be really interesting to see what's in her hand here and what her thought process is. So I bet she's getting the new motor notification of you're going to lose this game due to inactivity, which maybe doesn't actually exist in challenge matches, but we'd see.
KoDiamonds, he was a lot of fun to commentate with last week, and he's a guy with a lot of energy, and he's just doing it by giving us the tour of his room right now where he streams from.
And he held up his Sharks thing. He's local to me, so we're both... I'm not a Sharks fan in the sense that I don't really watch hockey, but I certainly live near him.
That in the Liliana, and he is...
Oh, nice. So she's able to use Magmatic Sinkhole's Delve ability to delve 1 card out of the graveyard and shrink the Tarmogoyf to a 4/5, then being able to remove it with Magmatic Sinkhole because of Delve. That was really cool. Oh, but then the Magmatic Sinkhole is the instant in the graveyard for...
Yeah, that is the old reminder from Tarmogoyf that the effect goes on the stack and the spell goes to the graveyard, so Tarmogoyf gets to count that spell.
Oh, yeah, because there's creatures in the graveyard, so she elected to remove that. That's tough. I think everyone has done that at least once. It happens more with Lightning Bolt, but that's certainly a mistake that I think everyone has made. This game should essentially be over. I would imagine.
Out for Cat. That was spelled.
I think the Cat said something in chat probably because you see KoDiamonds laughing, as if something funny.
Yeah, we might have the concession incoming here. The way KoDiamonds is acting and looking down at his version of what he sees from his end on the Team Ice hosted stream this week here on the Modern Streamers League.
Yeah, go Team Ice. Team Ice is the best.
I've noticed a definitive tilt toward the Team Ice members here on the casts so far. And Team Fire is going to come roaring back, I think, asking for equal time. But we'll get there when it's appropriate. Kat was certainly our first analyst who came on, and she was outstanding with it. And KoDiamonds.
Yeah, she did an awesome job.
Along with Cyrus corman-gill this week, and it's been a lot of fun here so far. Hope you're enjoying it as Cat Light now thinking through what options she has open with that Tarmogoyf still on board. That just has to be a heartbreaker. And Cyrus, you're right. We've all been there at one time or another in our Magic career, where it's not a play that an opponent makes. We just fail to reasonably interpret the cards that are already on the battlefield when we make a move. So it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I certainly have punted in some very, very high stakes matches before playing for a lot of money, so I can relate to that. Sometimes you just go so far down the rabbit hole of the tank, so Cat's thinking they're like, what's the best way to do this? Do I need to surgical something out of the graveyard to shrink the Tarmogoyf and then delve and then kill it? And then you eventually get to this circular logic where you come back around and you're like, oh, I can just delve my own thing and kill the Tarmogoyf. And you're like, oh, it puts an instant back in the graveyard. And then you feel like you're kind of silly, so... looks like my face is big again. That's exciting. I'm kind of having fun partying back and forth, different sizes back at home.
Is going to pick up game one, though, after the swing from the Tarmogoyf put Cat at 6. Cat just couldn't assemble the pieces to threaten KoDiamonds. And the Abzan deck, you called it early in this one. You thought that it would be favored in this matchup, and we certainly see KoDiamonds, who got off to a hot start. Cat had the answers early, but he was able to keep up the pressure while Cat ran out of opportunities to start to leverage those Phoenixes that were in the graveyard.
Yeah, and I like how he's sideboarding here. I think these are all obviously pretty powerful cards to bring in, and cards that are less good are Thoughtseize because, you know, a lot of the cards are pretty interchangeable in this Phoenix deck, and then Dark Confidant, it just dies removal so easily. And then the Hex Drinker, same kind of thing, where you more want to take a control role with Liliana and Tarmogoyf and lots of removal spells. And then he's bringing additional graveyard hate because one of the ways that you can lose is the really fast Arclight Phoenixes, as SaintDoom said earlier. And he's thinking that maybe Hex Drinker is actually still pretty good, which I could see Hex Drinker being better than Tireless Tracker. Especially, it depends a lot on how Cat's going to feel about Lava Dart in the matchup. It looks like she only has one in the main deck. And looking at Cat's sideboard, she has Seasoned Pyromancer, which will certainly come in as a good grindy card. Blood Moon, which I would imagine comes in as another pretty good, like, just card. Like, the thing about Blood Moon is that people kind of view it as it either needs to win the game or it does nothing, but it's really easy to make Blood Moon worth a card. Like, if Blood Moon turns off one of the creature lands, of which this deck has several, or turns off, makes it so KoDiamonds can't cast one of his spells, or makes it take a turn off casting one of his spells, that can be the difference. If that's where she wants to be in the matchup, does she want the game to slow down? That's another interesting question. But for example, it can be harder to cast Liliana, which is an important card in the matchup. Things like that. So I would imagine that Blood Moon and Seasoned Pyromancer are coming in from Cat's side.
We're looking at KoDiamonds' view of the match as Team Ice is hosting us in Week 4 here on the Modern Streamers League. The Modern Streamers League not only serving to drive the modern metagame forward, but also serving as an opportunity to fundraise for two great organizations around the world. Team Fire playing for A21, looking to end human trafficking worldwide, and Team Ice playing for the Cancer Research Institute, looking to research and end all forms of cancer around the globe. So Kat on the play gets off to a strong start as she's going to start scrying and setting up her future draws.
Yeah, Serum Vision is certainly the strongest turn one play out of this deck. I like KoDiamonds' hand too. It's missing a third land, but his deck is playing a lot of lands. It looks like it's playing 23 lands, so has some redraws at it, and you have a few turns to draw the lands. You also do have Scavenging Ooze, Assassin's Trophy, Maelstrom Pulse, which can be answers for all the things that matter. And the Fatal Push is a really nice pickup because that lets KoDiamonds go end of turn, fetch for a swamp, I would imagine, and cast Fatal Push. And then you get to untap and forest play the Scavenging Ooze, I think, because you're going to need to draw a third land anyways, and you can assume that's more than likely going to be a fetch, or you have information on what you draw this turn. So, and forest lets you cast both Scoos and Assassin's Trophy. So there's the Godless Shrine, which is a really good pickup, because that's let you cast Lingering Souls and Liliana, and lets you fetch a forest here and not pay the 2 life.
KoDiamonds with the Fatal Push right off the hop to take out the Thing in the Ice. The Thing in the Ice, a big threat. We saw Cat use that in week 1 to mop up the token assault from Dredge in the hands of GhostxEmpire. But KoDiamonds not going to give her the opportunity on that copy of it here early in game 2. KoDiamonds up 1-0.
Yeah, Thing in the Ice is a really cool card because for when that card came out, everyone kind of understood it was really powerful. There was the Blue Moon decks. Sometimes Storm would play it in the sideboard, but there wasn't really a shell that just broke it. Like, you'd see it from time to time. But then when Phoenix, that kind of gave you the critical mass of creatures that are very efficient and powerful that care about spells being cast to form an entire deck around it. So I'm happy to see that card team play it. It's a cool card. So Manamorphose here, we might be seeing an Arclight Phoenix turn, or maybe Cat doesn't have fully together, but she knows if she passes, maybe there's not going to be a chance to get the Arclight Phoenix going. So maybe she has to try and find the Faithless Looting here. She's digging with cantrips, trying to figure out if she can get there, because maybe the window's closing with Scavenging Ooze. Maybe not, though, because we're probably going to see KoDiamonds just go shock play Liliana next turn, discard Lingering Souls. So, but Cat doesn't know that, and that's what's kind of interesting here, is maybe KoDiamonds is just going to play a forest and have access to double Scavenging Ooze activation, turn off future Phoenixes, have removal up for the Thing in the Ice or Aria Flame, kind of lock up the game. So this is kind of her window as she sees it, I imagine, to really do something explosive this turn.
When you see the Arclight Phoenix player play a naked Manamorphose with 2 mana up, and then you're thinking right away, okay, this is either it or they've got nothing. To me, that's a 0 or a 10 play. And we see Cat come back and end up with something very medium, which to me, Cyrus said that she had to improve her hand on that turn. And this is as far as she could improve it, which is another Thing in the Ice. So I think KoDiamonds has to like the way he came out of that exchange right now.
He's not even taking his turn. He just pulls up a picture of a painting of Liliana.
I think he knows where he's going right now.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's going to be Liliana Edict here.
That doesn't leave him any mana to start eating with Scavenging Ooze, but...
Yeah, I guess Cat another window, but...
Yeah.
She has access to only 1 red mana. She already used a Faithless or a Manamorphose, so... I think that you have to be feeling pretty good about your situation if you're KoDiamonds here. But the thing is that, you know, Phoenix is capable of some very powerful things. But Lingering Souls and Maelstrom Pulse can take care of things like that. So I think that, you know, his draw's kind of lined up. He's got good cards that interact in this matchup. So we'll see if Cat can dig her way kind of out of this situation, although she is certainly behind here.
If you're KoDiamonds, how fast do you want to push the clock right now? Are you looking to ratchet up Scoos as fast as possible to close the door, or do you just want to kind of sit back a little bit, take the next couple of turns as they come, and see where the game starts to shake out?
Well, it's interesting without a discard spell. I mean, he can cast a discard spell here and evaluate from there, but from his seat, I would probably be interested in just deploying my creatures and attacking and using Liliana, because Cat has already shown she doesn't necessarily have something to do, and that something does not get easier to do once you're getting Liliana plus every turn. So I do like the position here, though, because it's almost certainly going to take something, and then it gives you more information about what to do. Ooh, she has actually a pretty nice hand here with Finale, Seasoned Pyromancer, and Double Thought Scour, so she was probably hoping to set up a turn. So he's thinking about taking the Seasoned Pyromancer here, which I think I would take the Finale, I promise, because Seasoned Pyromancer has text in the graveyard, and Finale is a very effective way to possibly get back in this game.
Yeah, the first one that jumps out to me is the Finale of Promise, knowing that it's a Phoenix turn unto itself, as we discussed in Game 1, a game that KoDiamonds did win and is up 1-0 here as we play Game 2. But with the redundancy of Thought Scour, I think it has to be the Finale at this point. But we'll see how KoDiamonds thinks his draw lines up against what Cat's trying to do.
Yeah, I don't love taking the Seasoned Pyromancer here. I mean, obviously Seasoned Pyromancer is a way to fix your hand, but it's just not that good here. Like, Finale of Promise is a way that you could get back in the game, where you play the Seasoned Pyromancer, okay, you have a 2/2 and a couple 1/1s, you get some redraws, but those other cards are card advantage, not just card filtering. So
he elects to go with the Seasoned Pyromancer on the discard and leaves her with the Finale of Promise.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable decision. I guess he can eat the Seasoned Pyromancer with Scavenging Ooze right now. Just another possible thing you could do. And maybe that was his thought process.
KoDiamonds just methodically trying to take apart the pieces of this Phoenix deck here in Modern. Sean Secrease along with Cyrus Corman-Gill. Thanks for joining us this evening. It is night 1 of week 4 here on the Modern Streamers League, brought to you by Card Hoarder and Card Kingdom. Now, KoDiamonds going to get into the red zone with Skoos. 12 is still a very comfortable life total, I imagine, for Cat Light to be on, knowing how explosive her deck is. And yes, KoDiamonds has the one green source up, Cyrus, but she could potentially dump a lot of cards into the graveyard and then start utilizing that card advantage engine.
Yeah, it's like Chad brought up a really good point here, where you have scavenging used for both the Seasoned Pyromancer and the Finale of Promise. So it kind of didn't really necessarily matter what you took there. But I guess it makes more sense to take the Seasoned Pyromancer, eat it end step, or just not care about 2 tokens or whatever. So I think that plays actually a bit better. I think I was incorrect. You don't care about 2 1/1s. So, and then now he gets to eat something out of the graveyard, take the Manamorphose, which was the card draw. Yeah, so this play actually ended up being really good. That was a good line by KoDiamonds that I missed.
Finale on the stack. Ko will eat it. The only other possibility on that angle was Skoos only gets the counter, of course, if you eat a creature. So he's not going to take the clock down from a 4-turn clock to a 3-turn clock, as he could have with a couple of creatures being eaten before his next attack and getting the Skoos to 4. But playing defensively right now to try and keep Cat off that explosive turn.
Yeah, he was able to just keep Cat to casting Exterior Visions for 4 mana there, which is not where you want to be. So I think probably what I would do here is plus the Liliana, and then flash back the Lingering Souls and still have the Scavenging Ooze open.
Certainly, because Tarmogoyf doesn't threaten a lethal attack with the Scavenging Ooze attack this turn, and then the Goyf and the Skoos next turn.
Yeah, which is what I'm thinking. I mean, I could be incorrect. Maybe you just want to end the game as quickly as possible. Discard Maelstrom Pulse is fine too. I think that you don't need 2 Tarmogoyfs here. And Maelstrom Pulse gets you out of... I can't think of what situation you would need Maelstrom Pulse for, but that's why it's there, right? It says destroy target permanent, and a bunch of other words on it that are relevant. But it's I don't know. I would want to have the card destroy target permanent just to feel safe. So I think that you don't need 2 Tarmogoyfs here, but... Because the game is just so unlikely to come down to... I mean, I guess she could cast Anger of the Gods, but it seems unlikely that card would be in her deck in this matchup.
Well, I think that's the beauty of the green-black decks and the green-black X decks, is you get Assassin's Trophy and Maelstrom Pulse, and that, tertiary line of text reads a little different on each of them, but they both allow you to destroy target permanent.
Yeah, destroying target permanent is a pretty powerful thing. I don't think Vindicate is modern legal, but that card is sweet. Although it's non-land permanent, but for Maelstrom Pulse. But man, they should just make Vindicate modern legal, and then Abzan would be great. And by great, I mean exactly the same.
100% with you if they wanted to do that.
Yeah, that card.
That would be for the format, but this is a format that allows Hogax. So
that card is fine in the context of Modern. I think the funny part about the card Vindicate is so often it's just Stone Rain, and Stone Rain is not too powerful for Modern, despite what Ponza players might tell you. But I like the SaintDoom's point about the pitching a Goyf, because one way to get back in this game is 2 Phoenixes. But I think regardless, what you want to do is make the play that KoDiamonds makes here, and I think that the details are kind of not the most important, as long as you're taking game actions and you're extremely far ahead. Your opponent has no board, has 2 cards, and you have to feel good when your opponent is kind of running out of cards and you have a Liliana.
KoDiamonds rocking back in his seat, hoping to get farther in this Modern Streamers League than his Sharks did in the NHL playoffs this year.
Okay, so Scavenging Ooze is going to eat the Seasoned Pyromancer, I imagine, here. And this might be a situation where several Phoenixes are going to be able to come back. Oh, there's another Seasoned Pyromancer. Let's see what she discards here. A Sleight of Hand, so she gets another token. Now,
Liliana's still on board for KoDiamonds, and he's going to be able to rain down Tarmogoyf here. Oh, and that's a nice draw. He's got the Nihil Spellbound now at his back. If he can hold up the Nihil Spellbound and cast a Tarmogoyf, and he's got Liliana available to go up or down, depending on what he wants to do.
I imagine that it's going to be a tick up, discard the other Tarmogoyf here, or maybe the Maelstrom Pulse, and then play the Nihil Spellbomb. and that kind of turns off most paths you can imagine Cat would have to victory.
The spell bomb can be activated on its own and eat the graveyard. The kicker, if you will, is paying the black to draw a card with it, but it is live right now, even with no mana up for Ko, and that's an important point.
So Ko was thinking about it. I think if he wants to activate Liliana or Nine, and I think that you just should, because Magmatic Sinkhole can't even kill the Tarmogoyf, because maybe that would change the math, but I think that it's unlikely. Oh, he's going to Edict. This is a pretty interesting situation.
Is he thinking Edict here and then go Maelstrom Pulse for the remaining sort of on the ground next turn if he needs to?
Yeah, I think I would still just Edict because my opponent has 2 cards in hand. Like, the thing you have to be concerned about is you lose your Tarmogoyf if you get into a situation where you're both not doing anything, but you have to imagine that the green-black deck is favored from that point, but maybe not. I mean, any Finale of Promise, drawing another one is pretty powerful. There's an Aria Flame. You have the Maelstrom Pulse for this, so that's good.
That sort of, I will date myself again, but illusions donate. You know, this is the downside to the old legacy combo deck of if you get rid of that before they can donate it, there's big trouble there. If you can get rid of Aria Flame after they give you the life, that's going to be big trouble for the Phoenix deck.
Yeah, Aria Flame, a really powerful addition from Modern Horizons 1. It's kind of like, it's funny that we used to play Pyromancer Swath in Storm and in Modern, and now we have Aria Flame, and it's just such a powerful card, and it's a pretty interesting card too. I mean, I like casting a lot of spells, and I like that it has kind of like the upside / down, mostly downside of having your opponent gain 2 life. But then in a format with Death Shadow, you have to imagine that was kind of targeted at Death Shadow. You know, this gives Storm a way to combat Death Shadow, one of its tougher matchups. Gives Phoenix a way to combat Death Shadow. And now we're not really seeing almost any Death Shadow with Blast Zone and Aria Flame coming out. So,
and we are going to see Death Shadow next round as Dido and Cyrus Corman-Gill are going to hook it up in round 3 this week.
Yeah, I will be facing off against Dido, who is he's just such a powerful wizard. Very good Death Shadow player. This should be a fun match to watch. I'm excited to experience it. So we're going to see a Maelstrom Pulse on Aria Flame, which I think is definitely the obvious play. Interestingly, KoDiamonds is leaving back Tarmogoyf here. Valiant Liliana, I think that I would have just smashed with Tarmogoyf, right? Like, she goes to 1 if she doesn't block, and I guess she blocks and gets to make 2 more tokens. But I wonder if I wonder the justification for the no attack there. Like, Liliana's just not worth that much here. Pressure.
Yeah, putting maximum pressure seems like a good idea. And now I think the question is, when do you blow the Nihil Spellbomb? First spell is on the stack. Now the flashback.
Well, there's an Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard, so
yeah, that's the trigger that you don't want to have go on the stack.
KoDiamonds wins the match. I think this is a pretty good matchup. I think, unless the Phoenix deck has a really explosive start, which it's certainly capable of.
And we saw that from Cat in earlier weeks here on the Modern Streamers League, but not able to put that together against KoDiamonds and Abzan here in round 2 on night 1 of week 4 of the Modern Streamers League. Cyrus, we're all tied up again. We're at 16-16. Through our first 32 matches in the Modern Streamers League. That included not only 2 previous weeks of Constructed, but last week of Singleton as well. And we're going to see you play next, and you're going to give us the forecast of doom prior to your match and showdown with Dido. You're going to be on Bring to Light Snowshift, and he's going to be on, we just mentioned it a moment ago, Death Shadow. So this is going to be a very interesting match. Cyrus Corman-Gill joining us all night tonight here on the Modern Streamers League. TheSaintDoom is going to jump in for Cyrus's match after Cyrus gives us the forecast of doom. That comes up next in round 3 here on the Modern Streamers League.
The devil's highway spared my life. I guess just like heaven before my eyes. Standing here, waiting on you. My bags are packed now, baby. Won't you claim me too? Won't you claim me too?
Hello, friends. So I'm here with the forecast of Doom for. Oh, looks like I have the wrong decks up here. This is the last match of Izzet Phoenix versus Abzan midrange. So we're gonna want to pull up Snowshift versus Grixis Death Shadow. There we go. So we have Grixis Death Shadow versus Bring to Light Snowshift. So generally, Grixis Death Shadow was extremely favored in this matchup. You look at Bring to Light, it's kind of a slow, clunky, spell-based deck. It has big mana, but it's just going to kind of... You shouldn't have great ways to interact with lightning bolts and stuff, but the deck has changed quite a bit. So things like Icefang Coatl is a pretty good threat against Shadow, which doesn't have that many threats. Teferi could bounce Gurmag. You have 3 Paths to Exile and a Snapcaster to answer those threats. You also have Supreme Verdict. So I think this match is a lot closer than it used to be, and it'll be pretty interesting to see which one of us can kind of pull ahead, you know, like... It really depends on what half of the deck you draw. Like, removal doesn't do a ton against the deck, but the Stubborn Denials are really powerful, but what do you call it? Teferi can turn those off. So I do think Shadow is still pretty significantly far ahead, but with the right draws, I think that my deck, Bring to Light Scapeshift, will be able to kind of pull this one out. So it should be a good match to watch, but I think that Shadow is ahead.
The forecast of doom from the man playing in the match himself, Cyrus Corman-Gill. We'll bring in his Team Ice teammate, TheSaintDoom, to help us navigate through round 3 here this evening. SaintDoom, your teammate says that he thinks that Grixis Shadow is ahead. We'll see how this one plays out. 2 contrasting styles, certainly. This reminds me of when Dito took on DaviusMinimus in week 1. We saw ultra efficiency in the Death Shadow deck against the 5-color deck. Now we're going to see it play a 4-color deck that sort of borders on big mana.
Absolutely. Dito kind of lucked out playing against 2 Bring to Light decks, just looking at the matchups he has to face, because Thoughtseize and Death Shadow, Grixis Death Shadow is built to prey against big mana decks, and this is a big mana combo deck. Looking at Cyrus's hand, because I actually have played a good deal of Scapeshift, not the Bring to Light Scapeshift or Snowshift that we see right here, but I have played a decent amount of Valakut-style decks, and having a turn 1 ramp is a really important part of the strategy.
And we see that Dito gets off the ground immediately with a key Thoughtseize to take away the Teferi. And he's already has Cyrus Corman-Gill on the back foot. Cyrus, who has doffed the thinking cap for his matchup here in round 3. We'll see if he has the thinking cap back on when he rejoins us for round 4 coming up. Part of the strategy deployed by Cyrus.
Yep, there's nothing more disheartening than seeing a turn 2 Death Shadow. And that was enabled without a Street Wraith, which means there could very well be a Street Wraith right now in Dito's hand. Ooh, he has Dismember too.
18 for Cyrus. His life total, he knows, in danger. And there's the Battle Rage. Can Dito take this all the way? He takes him to 2. And now the big mana deck is in a little bit of trouble here. No interaction, and another Tamer Battle Rage could put this away. Death Shadow does not have Trample, so Cyrus, he can deploy another blocker, but this is his only out right now, is a lowly 1/1 to try to hold off a lethal attack here.
So the good news is that he does have, like, drawing Scapeshift would just win that. Oh, they're back.
That was a masterpiece of brutal efficiency from Dito as he takes out Cyrus Corman-Gill in game 1. We look at the sideboards now, SaintDoom. Is this just a case where the deck that's favored in the matchup is going to get even more favored because of the interaction Dito can bring in?
Yes, Dito does have extra counterspell magic, which can stop Bring to Light, which can stop Scape Shift, can stop the removal spells, which Cyrus desperately needed last round. He needed some way to remove Death Shadow, and he didn't have any. Although, honestly, just a lightning bolt or 2 lightning bolts would have ended it right there for Cyrus, but that would be, you can't really bank on your opponent getting down to 5 life on turn 3 every game. The Ice Fang Coatl seem really, really important here. I think he needs to really lean on them hard.
Is it worth bringing in Pact of Negation and his ability to use the new Modern Horizons negation, the pitch spell, in order to, say, protect himself from Tamer Battle Rage? We saw that as a big key in Game 1.
I think, as someone who's played a Valakut deck against Grixis Death Shadow, I think you just have to hope they don't have Tamer Battle Rage. I think the real threat is the creatures, and if you can handle the creatures, then Tamer Battle Rage does nothing. And if you try to fight over the Tamer Battle Rage, then you're going to still die to a 7/7 1-mana Death Shadow or a 5/5 Gurmag Angle. You're going to die to a threat even without the Tamer Battle Rage. All the Tamer Battle Rages does is speed that up.
Yeah, it trims a turn off the clock, so to speak. And Cyrus Corman-Gill of Team Ice hosting this match this week between he and Dito from Team Fire, and another slow hand for Cyrus Corman-Gill.
Yeah, he's looking. He doesn't have any turn 1 ramp. He's looking to remand a turn 2 play and then try to stretch that into a turn 4. This hand just looks too slow here.
This is the second game in a row that Dito has gone turn 1 Thoughtseize. He takes away the remand, and now Dito knows the coast is clear if he wants to start working on his own life total for another early Death Shadow.
It's not what Cyrus needed to draw there. Cyrus needed to draw a form of interaction. A remand would have been fine. Although remanding a Death Shadow is not as good as it seems because it costs 1. Remanding a Gurmag Angler is great, but remanding a Death Shadow is not where you want to be.
Another early Death Shadow. And right now, while it's only a 3/3, we know that it can get out of control quickly. Quick tap. And this is going to be Dito.
The same exact game plan. Dito's just saying, hey, it worked so well last time. You know what? I'm just going to...
It feels like Dito drew the same 7 in both of these games.
Oh, this time he did have a Street Wraith. So, that...
And another Battle Rage.
This might go down as the absolute shortest match I've ever watched.
That's a 2020. Unbelievable. And Cyrus Corman-Gill just shaking his head. He took time away from the broadcast, and here he is with the thinking cap back on after the one-sided, almost, Cyrus, I hate to say this, but how much do I rent you for as a mule? Because you were just beaten so roundly that turn by Dito that there's no other way to say it. Your deck just a little bit too slow to interact with what he was able to bring to the table.
Oh, okay. Let's be fair. How many decks in Modern are beating turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 3 kill you? Turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 removal spell, turn 3 kill you, because that's what he did both games. So I do think my deck is slow, but I think that hand game 3 or game 2. So I think that it's not great to mulligan as a resource-based combo deck against the 6 discard deck, and I think I liked what Michael's point was about. You kind of just have to hope they don't have the TBR. And usually when I beat Shadow with things like Scape Shift or especially Bring to Light or Amulet, is that the games that they kind of just flutter around, they just don't have a threat, or they don't have a threat in the first few turns. Obviously, turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Dismember your blocker, play a Shadow, turn 3 TBR kill you. Like, that's gonna. There's nothing I can really do about that. I mean, I guess I could have double path or something.
Even your best hand is not going to beat what just happened to you.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever. I mean. There's an argument, well, maybe I'm supposed to just crack the Scourge Bolter right away because of Dismember getting a target, but I don't really think, I think you just need to soak up the damage you know you can soak up. I mean, traditionally Dismember is pretty bad against Scape Shift, so I didn't think about it being in, but I guess now I've added the 4 Ice Fang Coatls, so it's a lot better there. And I mean, Dato's, he's the best Death Shadow player. He crushes Moto all the time. I felt I was not ahead there unless I got incredibly lucky and he missed on a threat. And he had very good hands. Obviously played well, as always, built a good deck list and crushed me. I mean, that's part of the fun of Magic, so, and especially Modern. Sometimes you just wouldn't turn 3 and your opponent had no chance. I've done that many times before. So
in round 1, Cyrus, you mentioned Davius. he had to fight his mana in that 5-color Niv-Mizzet. You're assembling a 4-color deck. Do you feel like that's as big of a hurdle as the 5-color deck, or is it something that comes together a little bit easier with Fetch Shock being the mana format for Modern?
Well, it's kind of interesting because if you can assemble the first green source, you're usually doing okay, because the premise of the deck is that Search for Tomorrow and Sakura-Tribe Elder both fix your mana and ramp you.
Yes.
And so kind of what the deck traditionally would do was go ramp. You want to ramp into Cryptic and to Bring to Light, you know? Now it's kind of harder because you're stretching a mana a little bit more with Teferi, but you're still really just a green-blue deck that at some point wants to find white mana, and then, oh, by the way, I have 12 red lands in my deck. Well, let's just not think about that, because sometimes you draw Valakut in your 4-color control deck and just want to cry. But it's really just a green-blue deck, where we talked about having like kind of an axis, or whatever the word you used, which was much prettier, to play on, of the 2 colors, and then it's kind of like a double splash, where there's not really any red spells in the deck. I mean, there's Lightning Bolt, but you're playing 12 red lands with almost no red spells. So the mana's fine, assuming you draw a green source at some point. And that is kind of the issue with the deck, is you don't always do that. Or you're just hoping you never draw Valakut, because obviously it comes into play tapped. Colorless land essentially is not very good in that deck.
Team Fire up 1 match as we head to round 4. TheSaintDoom is back in the seat for the Forecast of Doom coming up next, as we're about to see Garrett Martin and GhostxEmpire. Will Dredge once again be in ascendancy? We'll find out next in round 4. This is night 1 of week 4 on the Modern Streamers League.
It's getting close to midnight here in the city where you once felt clear, and I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve. The devil's highway spared my life. I guess my stars still have sunshine, and I can't wait to see that smile. Standing here, waiting on you. My bags are packed now, baby. Won't you claim me too? Won't you claim me too? Watch the lovers embrace now. Their eyes light up just like the sights in this town, and I can feel your flight touch down. My nerves are flaring as I pass the time, but then I see a face that remembers mine, and you, just like heaven before my eyes. Standing here, waiting on you. My bags are packed now, baby. Won't you claim me too? Won't you claim me too?
Welcome back to the Forecast of Doom. This is a matchup that I have actually played quite a bit. Abzan Company Finks against Dredge. I'm going to lean towards Abzan Company in this matchup, even though I know GhostxEmpire is my teammate and he's a great, great guy. But Abzan Company is really strong against Dredge because it attacks on 2 different axes that Dredge has to combat and has to combat both. Now, Devoted Druid is a very fast turn 3 potential win. Devoted Druid into Vizier, into Ballista, or Shalai just absolutely just ends and wins the game. Now, Dredge doesn't have too many turn 3 wins. It also doesn't have too many main board removal spells. So having to kill Devoted Druid to survive, because a kill spell on Vizier after Devoted Druid is in play for a whole turn, doesn't have summoning sickness, doesn't matter, because in response to that kill spell, Garrett can gain infinite mana and then just win right there. However, if GhostxEmpire then is able to kill the turn 2 Druid, well, can you kill the turn 3 Kitchen Finks into maybe even a turn 4 Viscera Seer, gain infinite life? Probably not. That is why I think Abzan Company is heavily, heavily favored in this matchup, and the matchup data on the Creatures Company Discord, shout out, it shows that Abzan Company is actually very good against Finks because it attacks on those, very good against Dredge because it attacks those 2 different axes. Even if they deal with the Druid, they still have to deal with and respect that Finks combo. Now, I do actually expect, because of that, GhostxEmpire to bring in that one of Leyline of the Void to stop that Kitchen Finks combo to be able to fight just the Devoted Druid end. The key cards really here are, the key to this game is, can Dredge stop that early combo, or does Abzan Company just kind of spin its wheels in its tracks? Well, let's see how it all plays out.
The other question I think tonight on the MSL is, can Abzan go 2-0 here this evening? Sean Seacrease along with Cyrus Corman-Gill, thanks to TheSaintDoom in the Forecast of Doom. Cyrus, Abzan is one of those decks that its matchup percentages vary quite a bit based on how you build it. We're going to see a little bit more of a combo-centric build in this round in the hands of Garrett.
Yeah, and we're switching over the decks right now. Looks like my match. I guess it was so nice watching me lose on turn 3 twice that we should just do it again. I certainly would like to see that over and over again, replaying in my head. But here we go. Back to the Dredge side. So shout out to GhostxEmpire. He may or may not have won a CyrusCG Games Team Open with one of our commentators tonight, but a very powerful wizard. We actually played this deck, Dredge, in the Modern seed, although neither me nor GhostxEmpire played Modern. But Final Nub, shout out to Final Nub, played it. I like this hand a lot because it has Faithless Looting, and that card is good in this matchup and every matchup. And it has Conflagrate, which actually can technically take care of a Devoted Druid, so that is a nice place to be. Especially, you're on the draw, which is tough.
Now we're seeing GhostX. He mulligan down.
Oh, he had to mulligan down to 4. Oh, he's looking. You can see his face like, what has my luck been this league? Oh my goodness.
Is your theory on what you're trying to do different facing a combo Abzan deck like he knows he's up against this week? Or is Dredge just want to, especially in game 1, play its version of Solitaire and look to win game 1?
Well, you're certainly not going to erase this deck. The Devoted Druid deck basically always wins on turn 3 or 4. But I think what you're really looking for is those Conflagrates and the Dark Blast, and that's, I think, where you're looking at, because you just need to have some way to interact. And unluckily miss on a second land here, but if he can hit a land off this Dredge, he's actually in pretty good shape because Cathartic Reunion is so powerful. And Dredge is one of the decks that can just function on 4 cards and basically have it make no difference, assuming you can get your engine going. So
yeah, it's a key Stinkweed Imp that he was able to put into the graveyard. Now that's going to give him a Dredge 5.
Yeah, I think he's probably going to take a draw step here, though, because he really wants to find that second land, because just drawing 5 a turn or drawing a few a turn is just not going to be good enough here. You really want to do something explosive and have access to your Life in the Loam Conflagrate engine, as well as be able to cast this Cathartic Reunion. So it's going to be a really big draw step here. If he misses on a land, this game is almost certainly over. And if he hits, I think there's a very good chance he could win.
GhostX rubbing the hands together there. You see him in the graphic. He knows that this is a key turn that are going to determine how this game not only plays out, but as Cyrus just mentioned, what his percentages are to win this game.
Yeah, and also second land would let him conflag here, even though he'd have to discard because one time. He's saying one time for the land. He knows.
He get one time, so he has just used it up for the match. GhostX has used
no, he missed. Okay, well, it's going to likely just be too slow here, even if he hits a land here. I guess he could hit land Dark Blast. That wouldn't even do anything. Oh, and he misses on a land anyway. You can see his face. Yeah, so as Michael was saying, Dark Blast is not actually really that good in this matchup. You can go in my upkeep Dark Blast, Dredge, Dark Blast again, but that's obviously not a possibility here. And you have to imagine, as always, just mirrors. This Devoted Druid deck just always have it. I didn't cast any cantrips, but I'm just going to go turn 2 Devoted Druid, turn 3 Vizier every single time. Oh, I also have the payoff in my hand. Don't worry.
And GhostX dropping the one time after it just sold him down the river and didn't show up for him when he needed it. So does the Abzan combo deck have the kill here on turn 3?
I would be willing to bet some money that they always have it. He's crossing his fingers. He already uses one time, but how about a second time?
Garrett taking his time for Team Fire. Team Fire right now in the lead. They came in deadlocked with Team Ice 15-15 to week 4. Now it's a 17-16 lead.
Okay, so he doesn't have it, but he has something else that's very good, which is Scavenging Ooze.
Well, that's
I hate this hard township in these decks. So what were you saying?
I said, while the Scoos isn't an out-and-out win, it's certainly going to cut off a lot of opportunities for GhostxEmpire to leverage his graveyard, which is where Dredge has to be.
Yeah, and he's going to hit the conflag here. It's funny, he didn't die, but he basically is just kind of dead. Oh yeah, this game's over. He's just gonna concede. I hate that card, Gavany Township, in these decks. What game? Okay, I'm not playing these decks, but what games are you ever actually winning where Gavany Township is a significant factor? In my mind, that deck is just a colorless. It resets Kitchen Finks, but is that a real plan that the deck is winning under? That's what I wonder. But maybe it is for the infinite life thing and everything. But there's 2 of them in here. Jeez. Okay.
Played the deck more than I have. Certainly feel free to correct me, but I've always felt like it was the plan C for the mirror match where you get Path to Exiles flying around to prevent the combo kill. Now you're looking at sort of a mopey elf-style beatdown deck, and that just kind of raises your clock at that point. But there are certainly, I imagine, other options for it.
I don't know. It's hard evaluating decks like these if you don't play them a lot because there's tons of 1-ofs and 3-ofs. I guess they're on 20 lands, so the Gavany Townships are essentially spells, which I think is reasonable. So you see here, we're going to see what he's going to bring in. Obviously, doesn't have great cards in the matchup, unfortunately. I wonder if the Leyline of the Void will come in. I think not. You have to bring in the Dark Blast just to kill the birds. Thoughtseize can be pretty strong. Nature's not powerful card. And if you look at what Graveyard Hate Garrett has, it's not much. It looks like it's essentially just the things that he has game 1, which is a copy of Scavenging Ooze, and then his main plan is just to race, which is certainly very viable. This Abzan comedy deck races very quickly. So, this is a nice hand from. You can see his face. He knows too. It's nice.
The thumbs up already for GhostxEmpire, as he wants to be on the play with this hand here in game 2, and he's certainly going to have the turn 1 Shriekhorn as he's going to get things started.
Yeah, this is certainly in the one of the better hands that you can have. You get to Shriekhorn multiple times, and then Cathartic Reunion is just so powerful. So he knows there's no downside to doing this now. Technically, you want to do it in your opponent's second main phase, I guess. I can't think of a reason that it doesn't really make a difference. But in case you hit Necromil plus Amalgam, you get the Amalgam back on the next on your next turn it gets to attack. So you wouldn't want to do it on your opponent's end step, but doing it at any time before the end step is fine.
Well, and I think one of the best things about the Dredge decks, and you mentioned Cathartic Reunion, Cyrus, is they get to use both halves of the coin by putting, if they have 2 cards that they want in the graveyard, which most of the time they have at least 1, if not 2, they get to put 2 cards in the zone that they want them in for maximum value and then draw 3. And it just feels so often like a 4-for-1 or 5-for-1 when a Dredge deck uses Cathartic Reunion.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking when they printed that card. They're like, okay, we're going to unban Golgari Grave Troll. Okay, what if there was a card for Dredge that both discarded the cards and then let you dredge, no big deal, 18? Like, sure. Okay, so he gets the Stinkweed Imp, and then he's going to activate Shriekhorn here, see if he can get an Amalgam in response. Looks like he didn't, but there's already one in the graveyard. This is pretty decent. He gets to Dark Blast this Birds of Paradise here, and a lot of what the Abzan Company deck's going to be able to assemble will be too slow, I think. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
This has been a case of, right now, the Dredge deck either not coming together. We do have to keep in mind that GhostxEmpire mulliganed to 4 on the play in game 1. And that certainly played a part in it when he kept missing his second land drop. Now, though, the party is his, and you can see the body language is totally different. He's gone off with Shriekhorn twice. He's got the Cathartic Reunion.
Yeah, so he's electing to not Dark Blast this Bird's Paradise, which actually, now that I'm seeing him do it, I actually like a lot, because the 3 mana versus 2 mana on turn 2 is not extremely relevant when you have the board state that you have. Turn 2 Druid could be a problem, but what he could do here, he really needs, if he had a second black land, he'd be in a pretty good shape because he could remove a Druid. So this might just still be too slow, and I think the important thing here is he wanted to find a Conflagrate so that he can then use the Conflagrate to remove a Druid. Yeah, he's saying go. You know, he knows he has his nut draws. As explosive as this Dredge deck can be, this is basically one of its best draws.
The set on board, and now adding the prized amalgams as well. He's
happy. Absolute
pasting by Dredge right now.
But he could just lose to a Druid here. I can't see exactly his graveyard, but if he doesn't have a Cathartic Reunion, the game could still just, or not Cathartic Reunion, I'm sorry, a Conflagrate, the game could still just be over. But if he doesn't have it yet, he still has 7 looks at it with the Shriekhorn plus the Stinkwood Imp Dredge, if there's another one in the graveyard.
And with another Black Source, he could always Dark Blast, get it back.
Yeah, he definitely wants another Black Source here. He can Life from the Loam, get a second Black Source, but he'll still not be able to do that on this upkeep, which is an important interaction. It used to come up a lot when you needed to remove Deathrite Shaman. A+ Dredge skills, he's saying. He just knew that the top of his deck was, how he wanted it to be.
I think the bigger question is, did GhostX print up those sort of cue cards before the match, hoping he was going to go this way and anticipating all eventual outcomes, or is he just making them on the fly right now?
He is a powerful wizard, so I wouldn't be surprised. What's interesting looking at this is that our hero of Team Ice was able to assemble, 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 power on turn 2. This would not even be that great of a turn 2 from the Hogak deck. So it kind of just shows how broken Hogak is. So there's not quite a Conflag, but I think this game should be over.
Yeah, Conflag would end it for sure. He's got 1 blocker right now, does Garrett. Will this be enough? Let's see what GhostX has in the graveyard.
Gets back some lands.
It's
hard for me to exactly see the whole graveyard, but yeah. I think the thing is important is that he's doing nefarious things from the graveyard, which is pretty powerful here. He gets the second Black Source for the Dark Blast. Gets back on the prize amalgam. So I don't know.
No haste yet for the prized, or rather, no haste yet for the vampires that are coming back from the yard.
I do think Garrett kept 7 yet, chat. This is going to be Dark Blast the Birds, attack for 1 million. Yeah, I don't think Garrett has any outs here.
No.
Because his combo can't work the turn that you got it. And the
have enough blockers.
The Plague Engineer wouldn't do anything. Looking at his sideboard, there's no sweeper of any sort, so
Yeah, trophy, combo, Knight, 3 paths, Plague Engineer, Revel Arc, Shalai, Sin Collector, Forge Tender, Tracker, and Thoughtseize. None of those. I mean, there's not a Damnation or anything even close to that.
Yeah.
And
Collected Company couldn't even do it. It just wouldn't do it.
This one is done. And there it is. We're tied up at 1. Sideboards now for game 3. And this has really been the story of Dredge. Mulligan to 4, missed the second land drop, was never competitive, and then had one of the best hands for Dredge. Shriekhorn instead of Faithless Looting, probably the only way it could be any better if he has the turn 1 Faithless Looting instead of Shriekhorn. But sometimes that depends on what your reveals are. Certainly powerful what we saw him cobble together there in game 2. Now with Abzan on the play in game 3, Cyrus, is GhostX worried about speed? Because other than Conflag, the interaction from this deck doesn't give you a lot of angles.
Yeah, I mean, I think this matchup is just so much harder to draw if you don't have one of your Lightning Axes, mostly. So I think he'll be more looking for an early Lightning Axe or Conflagrate rather than just the nuts Goldfish hand that he had the game 2. But yeah, it's interesting if he wants to bring in this ley line. He's elected not to, obviously, but TheSaintDoom brings up a good point that it can turn off the infinite life combo. But the thing is, if you look at what else he'd be sideboarding out, it's kind of just all too too important. Like, he's already shaved a Bloodghast, 2 Creeping Chills, and 2 Shriekhorns. So you'd need to shave one of those cards in order to bring it in. I just think that the rest of the deck is better. But maybe not. I mean, it's an interesting thing. This is a nice hand. He's thinking about it. But I think it's a pretty strong hand because you get to go Thoughtseize your hopefully, half your combo that you only have one piece of into turn 2 Cathartic Reunion. And most hands that you have with Cathartic, like turn 1 play, turn 2 Cathartic Reunion, just have to be keeps in this deck. Like, that card is just incredibly broken. It's likely going to dredge him well over 10 cards here, or at least 10 cards.
GhostX already given the thumbs up. He's got the Invocation Thoughtseize available off the fetch on turn 1.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the only thing you could really looking for is a Lightning Axe, which probably means he's just going to draw a Lightning Axe on turn 1, being the powerful wizard that he is. But we'll see. You want removal, but you can't really complain about it. Thoughtseize and Cathartic hand with this deck.
This is game 3. We're tied up at 1 apiece between Garrett Martin and GhostxEmpire. Abzan combo in the hands of Garrett Martin at the top of the screen, and GhostX, our member of Team Ice, hosting the stream this week for us on the Modern Streamers League on Dredge here in round 4. Team Fire has taken 2 of the first 3 rounds. Can Team Ice even it all up with a win by GhostxEmpire here in round 4? Sean Secrecy along with Cyrus Corman-Gill.
You can see GhostxEmpire raising his eyebrows at the camera. He's a fun person to watch. When I was watching my match, I was just like focused because I get nervous, but he's coming from front of the camera, making some faces. Might dredge 15, no big deal. Like, I like it.
And you have to imagine right now that Garrett Martin is having mulligan issues as we're waiting for the match to start. We're seeing it this week from the view of Team Ice. Team Fire will be back on the host for week 5 next week as we wrap up the first half of the Modern Streamers League. Highlighting the Thoughtseize, GhostX already knows where he's going to go on turn 1. I think that's barring the draw of a Shriekhorn or a Faithless League.
I like GhostxEmpire, or GhostxEmpires make me laugh. Yeah, so it's either he's tanking on a pretty close hand or he is mulliganing low. I would imagine that he's kind of tanking here. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna Thoughtseize them. What thoughts do you play with Thoughtseize ever? And if so, what art do you prefer?
Original art, and yes. And that my reasoning being that the black and I believe purple in the art combines favorably with my preferred art for him to Turok when I put the two together in Legacy, so that I have some sort of artistic flow there on those 8 cards.
So you like the I have this him right in front of me right now. You have the Liz Danforth art of him to Turok, or which art do you use?
I believe it has the purple in it. Is that Liz Danforth? There were 4 arts for it, and
there's the chair, or there's the table, the circle, the wolf. Which one do you use?
It's not the chair. It's not the wolf. Not the table. It's got to be the circle. Then does it have some purple in it? You have it there in front of you.
Yeah, but let's see. There's the Hoover art is good too. So
I'd be
him to Turok art.
You put me
interesting. We're waiting for. Their match has started, so we're good. Oh yeah, there's the Hoover art. That's like the guy kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that match is Thoughtseize much better. Yeah, Quentin Hoover.
That's what I was thinking of. The Hoover
Not
art.
The circle. Yeah, that is good art. Okay, so we have a turn with Thoughtseize here. From Garrett taking Cathartic Reunion. So now.
No brainer if I'm on that side.
Now Marcus's hand is a lot worse. So now you have an interesting question. Do I want to Thoughtseize myself? Is that even a competitive option here? What do you do? I think I would still Thoughtseize my opponent.
Garrett Martin. Well, with knowing that your opponent is playing a combo deck, I think Thoughtseizing the opponent is good. If it was
wow, he mulled a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so yeah, of course you Thoughtseize turn 1 here. And I know Marcus is thinking, what he's thinking here is my opponent's just going to draw Devoted Druid into Vizier of Remedies. I know it, and then into the payoff. But they just always have it. I think my face got small again. There's something about my face where it just is changing sizes. Well, that's okay. I'm back. Better than ever.
You're a broadcast chameleon.
Yeah. So what is Marcus's plan here? Just to cast his creatures? And it might just be good enough because of how poor Garrett's hand is.
Yeah, Garrett kept the hand of Thoughtseize, Land Collected Company, and because his opponent had Thoughtseize as well, he was just raw drawing off the top.
All right, he has the Vizier. That's step one of needing to assemble something.
A nice draw is what that is. Now Ghost.
Oh, he's saying, I should have played the Gemstone Mine to cast an Archimaeba, which I think is actually an interesting question. All right, there's a redraw because you can use... Is that a... What land is that? Windswept Heath? Yeah.
Windswept.
So you have to imagine that he's probably just going to... Didn't attack with the Vizier. I'm not sure why.
To play the Amalgam. Ghost facetiously celebrating the hardcast turn 3 Amalgam.
Yeah, we certainly have a match on our hands here.
Which was unlikely to say once we saw Garrett's hand with the Thoughtseize, but a couple of draws off the top, and he could certainly get there.
So he decides not to correct that, which is reasonable when you have Quarter Calling and stuff in your deck. I imagine is in the deck. Yeah, there's 2 Quarter Calling, 1 Eldarmy's Call, 1 4 Collected Company.
So plenty of ways to fish the deck for creatures.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus just really isn't doing anything here. He's just casting 3 mana 3/3s and attacking like a game of limited, and his opponent kind of mulled low. But at any point we could just see Garrett draw the other half of this combo and make infinite mana win the game, which is I think you have to be worried about here. Am I going to lose it on mold of 4 when I had a turn 1 Thoughtseize? That always stresses me out. It's like, not this one.
That would be salt in the wounds because we saw Ghost mull the 4 himself in game 1 and lose that game.
And he's a deck that mulligans much better.
Yes.
Although the Druid deck does mulligan reasonably well, but he didn't have either half of the combo in the opening hand, so we're going to have to see here what he draws.
Ghost looking at his options now.
And somehow Garrett's life total is already very low. I guess he fetched Shock, Thoughtseize, or no, he had Nurturing Peatland, dealt some damage to him. He's taken some hits. He's already at 9 life.
Now did he have something that's going to be worth fetch shocking? If he does, that has to be Collected Company. With 4 lands up and 1 card in hand for Garrett.
Oh, there we go. The Loam engine can start.
This is quite a bit later than you would hope if you're on Dredge, but because of the inability for Garrett to really bring any pressure to bear on his mulligan to 4, Ghost has just all the time in the world, it would seem like.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to win this game pretty quickly from just attacking. I mean, you have lethal here. Because it's like he either has to chomp or
right.
he doesn't have the ability to combo. So what you're worried about here is him having an instant speed devoted Druid and untap and win the game. So you can just go Life Below and cast Stinkwood Empire and hope it's good enough.
And if I'm Garrett, I don't block there. I have to give myself an out to win. I mulligan to 4. I'm looking for the ultimate backdoor win here in game 3.
Oh, yeah, you played a win. There's no way you ever block there.
There's the life from the loam.
And now all Marcus can do is cross his fingers and hope this is going to be good enough.
Hard cast Stinkweed Imp, just the way Dredge draws it up.
Marcus is just laughing. Is this really how this game is happening? So if there's not an instant speed devoted Druid here, it's going to be hard to win this game. Can't shock, certainly.
No.
Even Scavenging Ooze can't gain any life at this point, so he's excited.
This seems like Ghost X has him just boxed out. We saw both players mulligan to 4 at some point in this matchup. And is it going to be...
Yeah, Finks and Coco could be good here.
Another blocker. But I don't think
so he gets to go Eternal Witness, buy back Collected Company, block the 2 3/3s, go to 1, next turn cast Collected Company. His flyers, this 1/2 flying creature is going to be pretty hard to beat.
Well, Garrett's just got to spin the wheel with the Collected Company and hope that he hits Yahtzee.
Yeah, I mean, you could hit Kitchen Finks, certainly. And that would give you another turn.
A+ Dredge skills showed on the card.
A+ Dredge skills. So he's able to take it down with the Creeping Chill. They always have it.
That Creeping Chill goes on the stack, and that's going to be it. Another backdoor that was built into this Dredge deck. Those 4 Creeping Chills have changed the math on a lot of matchups for Dredge, and we see Ghost X leverage that here for the win. Each player mulliganing to 4, each opponent, as you would imagine, winning that player's mulligan to 4, and then we saw one of the absolute top hands that Dredge can assemble on the play in Game 2 as GhostxEmpire takes it down and evens things up for Team Ice. We are now deadlocked at 17 apiece, 2-2 tonight here on the Modern Streamers League with one more match to come. Making his Monday Night Streamers League debut as a player, it's going to be TheSaintDoom coming up against Yamakiller. This is the only matchup this week of undefeated players here on the Modern Streamers League. It is going to be an excellent match, brought to you in part by Card Hoarder and Card Kingdom. They help us here on the Modern Streamers League not only advance the modern metagame, but also make their strategies available to you. Whether you're playing online on Modo with Card Hoarder, you can pick up the cards you need in order to lay out and to master your favorite deck and strategy from this week on the Modern Streamers League. Or if you have a match at your LGS, or maybe you're traveling for one, Card Kingdom, they'll get you your cards in time for one of the most competitive price structures there is in modern cardboard. Card Hoarder and Card Kingdom, our two great sponsors here on the Modern Streamers League. Coming up, we'll have TheSaintDoom taking on Yamakiller. You want to give us a little preview of how that is going to shake down, Mike, before your match as you make your Monday night debut? We'll see who's going to take it down. Is it going to be Hardened Scales? Is it going to be Titan? We'll find out next in round 5 here on the Modern Streamers League.
It's getting close to midnight here in the city where it once felt clear, and I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve. The devil's highway spared my life. I guess my stars still have sunshine, and I can't wait to see that smile. Standing here, waiting on you. My bags are packed now, baby. Won't you claim me too? Won't you claim me too? Watch the lovers embrace now. Their eyes light up just like the sights in this town, and I can feel your flight touchdown. My nerves are flaring as I pass the time, but then I see a face that remembers mine, and you, just like heaven before my eyes. Standing here, waiting on you. My bags are packed now, baby. Won't you claim me too? Won't you claim?
Welcome back to the last forecast of Doom this evening. We have a slight change of schedule where I will be playing against Yamakiller on Hardened Scales. This is a match of two undefeated players right now. Both players are 3-0. We saw Cat Light, who is also undefeated, fall earlier tonight, which means after this match, it'll be the winner of this match, and Spider Space is the last undefeated players in the Modern Streamers League. Now, what's really, really exciting about this matchup to me is that Karn, the Great Creator, is Stony Silence, and I am playing against an artifact-based deck. That is the key card on both sides of the table. Can Yamakiller go wide or kill me before Karn hits the table? Now, we just saw a Devoted Druid strategy in that it can win turn 3, but Hardened Scales is a lot more interaction, things like Walking Ballista, that can just end a game, or just a Ravager Inkmoth that can just end a game and race a Druid or kill kill a ramp package or kill Druid itself. A 2/2 Walking Ballista, which is really reasonable for Hardened Scales to have, can absolutely end the day of a Devoted Druid. Now, Teferi is also really interesting in my list because Teferi's minus can also bounce artifacts. So can unsummon a creature, can bounce a Hardened Scales, can do slight things to interact with the board. This is clearly a race. Hardened Scales, depending upon the hand, is either going to be interacting, killing Druid, and then probably running away with the game, or going wide and attacking, because Karn is really weak against go-wide strategies. I'm really, really interested in this particular matchup, because it may look at first like it really favors one, but a go-wide deck is the bane and the absolute weakness of a Planeswalker-centric one. And Hardened Scales is a go-wide deck that also packages removal spells in the forms of cards like Walking Ballista. Well, that is the forecast. Let's see how it all plays out.
Yeah, this should be pretty interesting. I know that Yamakiller is an absolute master of this deck, having a Grand Prix Finals appearance. And obviously, TheSaintDoom is no slouch himself when it comes to green combo decks, including this Druid deck. So it should be interesting. It looks like a pretty good hand. I imagine this is a keep from the Druid side.
I'm going to wait and see what TheSaintDoom does here, because due to, and we've talked about this a number of times tonight, perfect information on what your opponent's deck list is, that may change it. I really like the pace that Hardened Scales can kill with and the options that it can put together, including Inkmoth Nexus for clean kills. But the fact that Karn has that static line of text that shuts down all of your opponent's artifacts, I have to think that TheSaintDoom is a huge favorite in this matchup. And if I'm Yamakiller and I know what I'm facing, I think I'm probably looking for that Inkmoth Nexus right away, because as a land, you can still activate it to become a creature and then threaten to kill with the infect counters. We'll see how this one ends up playing out, Cyrus.
Yeah, it looks like TheSaintDoom has picked up 2 lands in a row here, which is not exactly where you want to be. But he's going to have the powerful combo of Utopia Sprawl plus Arbor Elf here. And I imagine that he's going to... I think I would Oath of Nissa here. You don't get to cast Karn this turn if you find it, but you could find like something else. You could find Devoted Druid, which would be powerful. That's not the best thing, but now you can still cast that plus Vizier or Scavenging Ooze. I imagine the Scavenging Ooze would
Oyster next turn too with double Arbor Elf.
Oh yeah, you can make 1,000,000 mana. The question is, what am I going to spend that mana on at this point? And he has a lot of outlets. I mean, the Devoted Druid is good. The Karn is obviously great, as always.
Scavenging Ooze isn't bad in hand.
Oh, he doesn't get to go Skews plus Arbor Elf here. He has to play the Vizier, but that's still fine.
Next turn, yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was able to cast Skews this turn. I was just wrong on the mana. But, yeah, I mean, you have 1,000,000 mana. What can you draw? I mean, Finale of Devastation is pretty powerful. If X is 10 or more, they gain haste. All right, here's Ravager plus Hardened Scales, threatening a pretty powerful thing coming up. But
see, this is the spot where I think that Yamakiller is hoping for that Inkmoth Nexus, because that's just a clean kill with Hardened Scales on the board, and it's one that a Karn can't stop.
Yeah, here's the Devoted Druid. So this is lethal next turn. And so now what he has to be thinking about is, I hope my opponent doesn't have Walking Ballista, and I just need to not lose this turn. I guess it doesn't quite have an out here, so it's not quite lethal. But you can assume that he's going to draw one, being the lucky player he is.
Certainly, time is limited if you're Yamakiller.
Yes, you have to assume your opponent has an outlet here. Although we know at home that TheSaintDoom's hand is just 2 lands. All right, here's another Ravager.
Again, this is a hand that's just missing that Inkmoth Nexus, or certainly the Walking Ballista. He could gun down TheSaintDoom's entire board with the Walking Ballista here. But it's not.
Yeah, it looks like Yamakiller didn't really quite... He just had a pretty good fair draw. Mm-hmm. So if you look at here, that's 4 damage coming across, but you can sack, make that a 6, make that an 8, make that a 10, and then... I don't think that's lethal, but I think it's fairly close.
With no trample, though, the extra Arbor Elf is just clean.
Yeah, you should just throw an Arbor Elf in the way. But I think he's thinking if he needs to block with both creatures here or not. And I think it's essentially free too because you need to kind of draw something here. Yeah, I think you should double block like this, or not double block both creatures here.
So TheSaintDoom appears to be on the back foot for the moment because his hand is just
Maybe
too.
not though, because
Ravager going to get to work sacrificing the welding jar.
How many brick?
Ravager.
Well, so he had 2, 4, 6.
A third consecutive land draw for SaintDoom, and his hand is just 2 lands right now. He's certainly on the back foot here, Cyrus.
Yeah, I think that Yamakiller has it here.
TheSaintDoom putting 1 Arbor Elf in front of the 4/4 Ravager.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really anything else you can do.
SaintDoom looked like he had put all the pieces together, but back-to-back-to-back lands off the top. And through the Oath of Nissa, which revealed only a second Arbor Elf, we really didn't see the powerful parts of the deck that SaintDoom has brought to this Modern Streamers League and that has carried him to this 3-0 start through the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, he kind of just bricked off. And Hardened Scales is fairly consistent deck, especially when it draws Hardened Scales. It basically can just kill you if it ever gets a creature through, so...
And this is, you mentioned seeing decks.
This has to be lethal, right?
I would imagine in full plumage. And there it is. Yamakiller picks up the win as SaintDoom falls after bricking off in game 1. So that'll bring us to game 2 between Yamakiller and SaintDoom. SaintDoom, does he just look to get more efficient at what he's doing, or is he looking for actual answers? We know that decks that elect to play Karn, the great creator, have to use up part of their sideboard as their Karn board, so to speak. So some of his options on straight sideboarding are going to be limited.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that the exile removal spells are going to come in. They're so powerful. Night of Autumn obviously comes in as an, artifact destruction spell, and you could be looking to shave some of your clunkier things, some of your grindier things, which maybe you want the grindy things, though, because you're playing more of a control route. So we'll have to see. I agree with bringing in the paths. It's just a question of what you cut.
I think it would be a great viewing, too, if we could get SaintDoom to win with a finale of devastation here in one of these 2 games.
Yeah, that card is pretty cool. It's like a Green Sun Zenith kind of card that's also like just makes your team huge. It's a win condition.
Sure.
It's like it's the crater and the hoof.
I think that's an apt way to put it. But, okay, so you've got Finale of Power that we saw, or Finale of Promise that we saw from Cat Light earlier in the Blue-Red Phoenix deck, and now we have Finale of Devastation. Is there one that you think is fundamentally more powerful? Is it the mana efficiency of the red Finale, or is it the ability to just end the game on the spot of the green Finale?
It's all contextual. I mean, you look at Limited and you see the black Finale is just Plague Wind, so it's a one-sided Plague Wind. The white Finale is not as good as the other ones, but it's still a powerful card. Blue Finale, I mean, who doesn't love drawing cards? The green Finale is just worse than Green Sun Zenith, which is banned, so it's like... I think the red Finale is just a little bit better, but it's obviously contextual in a deck like Phoenix. It's very powerful, but a toolbox card like that is really good, but we already had Court of Calling and various things like that in this format, but it's nice that it wins the game also. So I think they're pretty comparable in power level.
SaintDoom on a mulligan to 6 on the play.
Yeah, that first hand was just too clunky.
Where will he go from here? And is it a turn 1 Hardened Scales?
No animation module, though. Not exactly where you want to be. A little slow. But
no third artifact to go with the
yeah, he's going to be able to go turn 2 Night of Autumn, turn 3 Karn here, which is going to be pretty powerful on the play. You hit the animation module, I imagine, because the Mox Opal needs enough artifacts to turn on anyways. But then again, you might just be worried about what your opponent plays next turn, because the Karn's coming down next turn. So maybe you just... I think I would still just hit that. Because the animation module still does things through Karn, from what I understand. Yeah. I think, right? You may pay 1 to separate trigger. I'm not exactly sure, but it still does things through Karn. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's obviously the correct hit. Now you get to kill the Mox Opal plussing, and the game should be essentially locked up here.
We'll see what Yamakiller has looking to answer. Not a bad mulligan to 6 right now for TheSaintDoom.
Pretty nice, yeah.
Going to be able to take down the Knight of Autumn, offering the trade to keep the Walking Ballista.
Look at what he has in his sideboard to grab.
Karn, Scion of Urza, Nature's Claim, Dampening Sphere, Dismember, and Grafdigger's Cage. All sideboard options for Yamakiller here.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's going to get anything with Karn here, or what he's going to get with Karn here. You don't have quite enough mana for the Lattice combo, so you kind of want to just keep your Karn alive for this turn, but you can also just play Devoted Druid plus Eternal Witness, and then you just lock it up next turn, and plus the Karn. I think it essentially doesn't matter once you play a one-sided Null Rod that's also win condition against the all artifacts deck, but getting back the Knight of Autumn for the Rubbins, you hate to see it. Well, not me, because I'm on Team Ice, but...
And unless Yamakiller can break this up right now, we're going to see a win, and he obviously cannot. And SaintDoom picks up the win quickly in Game 2. That sends us to a decisive Game 3 here on Night 1 of Week 4 of the Modern Streamers League. And we are deadlocked at 17 wins apiece for Team Ice and Team Fire. Whoever takes down Game 3 is going to give their team the leg up heading into Wednesday night. We'll preview some of those matches coming up in a minute. And whoever wins Game 3 is going to remain undefeated. Our undefeateds are going to be cut from 4 after Week 3 to, at the most, 2, maybe 1, depending on the outcome of Spider Space's matchup coming up on Wednesday. So we'll see how that goes, as these things have given us a little bit of his own artistic interpretation of how some of his deck may work here before Game 3.
So it looks like on the draw he elected to shape a land for Teferi, it looked like. It's interesting. I don't really think that Teferi seems that great in this match, but I think I'd rather have the Path. Just because there's so many ways to fizzle the bounce of the creatures, which a lot of them can be sacrificed, things like that, and then you don't even get to draw a card. So he knows this deck better than me, but it's an interesting decision point, I think. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily wrong, but all right, looks like we got an explosive start of turn 1 Mox Opal into... is this just a Hangerback Walker? That's okay.
This is a sort of a classic Affinity open when they would play land into Mox Opal into 2 more 0-drops and then start the game going. A lot of times you would see Affinity decks drop their whole hand on turn 1.
Oh, Karn is so good against this Hardened Scales deck. I don't know how anyone still plays this deck, but it got second at the Mythic Championship, so we're going to see... Oh, interesting. So you could Utopia Sprawl another land. It'll be interesting to see how he spends his mana this turn.
Yeah, I wonder if Utopia Sprawl, concentrating them is better than spreading them out. We'd have to ask these SaintDoom about the back.
I don't think it really matters in this matchup. It doesn't look like he has any ways to destroy the lands. He does have Nature's Claim, but that's destroys an enchantment, so... I think you want to just do this here to maximize... I guess, does it even really maximize your mana? You can play Oath of Nissa plus Devoted Druid or something you find off Oath of Nissa, and then you get to Karn next turn, so it gets back the Karn. Jeez.
Mana floating.
Well, Karn is really good against this. That's my expert level play-by-play commentary, is that Karn the Great Creator, the card that is a one-sided Null Rod, is good against the deck that is all artifacts.
Well, and the ability to plus to kill things like Welding Jar or Mox Opal, these things are just unbelievable that Karn brings to the table as weapons in this particular matchup.
Yeah, I imagine that Karn completely changes this matchup, too. I know that SaintDoom was hinting on that earlier, but Walking Ballista is pretty good against this deck normally. But wow, Karn just turns off all of their avenues of attack, so...
Yeah, I would have thought, previous to Karn being printed, that Hardened Scales would just be too lightning fast on the other side of the deck. But Karn, we mentioned static lines of text earlier this evening on Modern Streamers League, and Karn certainly bringing to bear a huge weapon. You mentioned it, Cyrus, one-sided Null Rod. I don't think that's overstating it at all.
Yeah, that's what it actually does. Yeah, it's just one-sided Null Rod. It's insane. It does nothing. Yeah, that's the joke. But that card, you see that completely warping formats like Vintage, not so much Modern, but mostly Vintage. Good in Legacy, just a good card. So he's deciding how he wants to spend his mana here. So the Karn is not fully protected. You could Teferi bounce something, which is okay. I think since you have the Eternal Witness, it's pretty reasonable just to play the Karn here anyways. And then if they want to spend mana destroying it, you get to Eternal Witness it back. Because that is what that card is, right? It's a different art. But I believe that's an Eternal Witness.
Yeah, that's Eternal Witness along with Karn and Teferi. And where will SaintDoom go now? Comfortably ahead, we're assuming because of the presence of Karn already in hand, but it's not on board yet and not shutting off the opportunities for Yamakiller.
So he looks like he's thinking about casting this Teferi, but yeah, so he's going to decide he's going to test the Teferi. Bounce the Oath of Nissa, maybe? No, he's going to bounce the Hangerback Walker. I like that too. It's just going to slow down. It's going to slow down Yamakiller so much, and then he gets to play the Karn next turn.
And don't forget, once you bounce that, you get a draw off Teferi as well. Teferi, so good. You mentioned Karn, so good earlier. You mentioned, Finale of Power we've been talking about. You have Finale of Devastation. Let's not undersell Teferi Timebender. I mean, it comes down, resets the battlefield, and replaces it.
You can just play Karn this turn also, geez.
SaintDoom taking the deep breath. You can see him way out in front now as he's very comfortable. Is he going to go after the mana and kill the Opal? Yes, he will.
Yeah, I mean, the mana can't be used anyways because Karn, but it's it's just pretty absurd. Now he gets to he can just get something. Like he can get Lattice here. Basically, whatever he does, he's just going to win. I imagine that is the Teferi going to go down here? The Karn? You just have to check the Karn. Yeah, you kill the Teferi. Although I can't think of a situation you'd still be able to win this game. God, there's Winds of Abandon, a new card for Modern Horizon, another new one that is sort of like a Swords to Plowshares that you can overload for a Plague Wind type of effect.
TheSaintDoom looks like he's going to get to 4-0 in the Modern Streamers League. Are we looking at Karn? I have to believe this is going to be Lattice combo now.
Yeah, he's behind on board, but the Karn goes down to 3, gets stacked for 3. You can chump with the Devoted Druid, and then not the greatest spot to be in. I think that I would be maybe inclined just to get Wormcoil Engine here and cast it.
That certainly turns it around. And
I don't think
the availability for Yamakiller out of the sideboard, you have, as we talked about, Nature's Claim, but Wormcoil Engine, the redundancy, it splits into its two halves, as it were, and continues to pressure you and gain life.
Yeah, I guess with the Eternal Witness, this play is actually just good. Because Karn goes to 4, so he can't even remove the Karn this turn. And then you get to play some blockers, and the game is locked up.
SaintDoom, considering his options, whether he wants to block or not, he will on the Hangerback Walker. And right now, SaintDoom, he's going to untap. He's going to deploy the Eternal Witness. And then he's going to have all kinds of options here.
Oh, you can just make the Lattice a 6/6. I mean, yeah, the game's over. Like
attacking with the Lattice, Wormcoil Engine, a possibility in the future.
It's going to overflow.
Is now.
Abandon. Just salt in the wound. Those things you had, well, you don't have them anymore. I'm sorry, they're gone.
The game might not be over on board, but it is over in practice right now. And now it's officially over. SaintDoom rubbing his hands together. He gets to 4-0. Team Ice goes back on top, 18-17 after a 3-2 showing here on night 1, week 4 of the Modern Streamers League. What an exciting almost 2.5 hours. We saw some amazing blitz kills. We saw some amazing thought processes and decisions arrived at throughout the evening. And then we saw how broken Karn, the great creator, can be when it gets its nose out in front. Sean Seacrease along with Cyrus Corman-Gill, who's been our guest tonight, and TheSaintDoom with us. All right, you just won that one, SaintDoom, and you got the 4-0. That was cheating, essentially, with Karn against a deck that's all artifacts, as you undersold how favored you were in the forecast of Doom.
I don't know if I was favored, because if Hardened Scales did go wide, then so for example, in that situation, if Yamakiller had one more creature in play, I would not have been able to go for the Lattice there, which was the win. And that would have been a drastically different game, because if I can't protect Karn, then the lattice lock means absolutely nothing. So I think we really saw the strength of Karn in game 2 there, where Karn attacked his resources, and I had Knight of Autumn to just keep looping Knight of Autumn to keep destroying stuff. I think game 1 showed what happens when I guess I don't play Karn, and games 2 and 3 showed what happens when I do.
Yeah, that was pretty smart of you to have turn 3 Karn multiple times. That was a good strategy against the artifact deck. Your deck seems pretty well positioned post-board to defeat that deck, though, with the all the white removal spells, as well as the Karn, and also just a fast combo potential. Like, if they're going wide, oh, well, here's infinite damage, so...
Mm-hmm. I really like Druid Karn. I like its position right now. I know I'm 4-0 in the Modern Streamers League, but that was... We picked these decks at the basis of a very new Modern. I keep tuning and brewing with that list a little bit. A really big addition that I added to it was a one of Hexdrinker main, which just seems like a little odd, but I do have a really good ramp package. And with Finality, I can Finality for 3, grab a Hexdrinker, use Teferi to protect while I level up that Hexdrinker. It's been a really, really neat little interaction to add an extra piece of threat density against decks like Jund and Blue-White Control.
Yeah, lots of new cards from Modern Horizons. I mean, even Yamakiller there had the Scrapyard Recombiner, which is a pretty interesting card that hasn't gotten to see much play because Karn exists, but it's another modular creature that lets you search for construct cards for 3 mana. So that's a pretty interesting card. Lots of changes in Modern recently, not even accounting for the recent ban, which essentially changed nothing. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was an awesome night tonight, and I know we're going to see more tech going forward. 5 more matchups coming up on Wednesday night. Cyrus Corman-Gill has been our guest tonight. Cyrus, give us a final thought. What was the thing you'll take away from this week? Was there a play of the night, a most important series of plays of the night? What stands out to you?
Dido is very good at Death Shadow, and Team Ice is really good at Magic because we're ahead. So I think that's my takeaway from this week. Thanks for carrying me, everyone.
Team Ice is up 1 match at 18-17 heading into night 2 of week 4. TheSaintDoom with us tonight as well. He'll be back on Wednesday, as will I. SaintDoom, you're now 1-0 on Monday nights, so it seems it doesn't matter when you play. Things have gone well. How much of that is the NDA that people have to give you the win since you were the one who started the Modern?
Don't even
talk about that.
I joked about that in the Modern Streamers League Discord. I think it was Spider Space said, no, everyone here is too cutthroat to just give you a win. And I was like, all right, that's good. That's good news.
That's actually very true. And Spider Space is our other undefeated player heading into Wednesday night. We'll see if there's just going to be one undefeated or if we will have 2 after Spider Space plays on Wednesday night.
Dahlia stomping. He's undefeated.
Susurus, who just won a challenge. So he's going to have a hot player on his hands coming up on Wednesday night. For Cyrus, for TheSaintDoom, for all of you and for all of our players tonight here on the Modern Streamers League, and for our fantastic sponsors, Card Hoarder and Card Kingdom, Teams Fire and Team Ice. You can check it all out again. Night 2 of week 4 coming up Wednesday night. I'm Sean Seacrease. Thanks for joining us tonight on the Modern Streamers League.